So Hare Krishna everybody, now we're starting our, I think it's our fourth class, isn't it? Fourth class on the Nectar of Instruction, Srila Rupa Goswami's Upadeshamrita, Srila Prabhupada's translation of that book. And before we start, we should just chant some prayers. So please feel free to join with me. Om Agyana Timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam yena tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadhamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatham Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakham Vitamscha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Panchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya eva cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Nanda Kursi Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai. So, welcome to all of you once again to our next class on Nectar of Instruction. Today we'll be doing verses 6 and 7. Yes, 6 and 7. But before we continue, before we move on, who can tell me what we discussed in our last class? At least one thing. Yes, Sashikumar Prabhu.
Was that about loving exchanges between one devotee and another? Or, yeah?
Yes, the 6 loving exchanges. Yes, the 6 loving exchanges. And what are they?
Giving and receiving gifts, revealing one's mind in confidence, inquiring confidentially, and giving and receiving prasadam.
Yes. The 6 loving exchanges between one devotee and another. And Srila Prabhupada mentioned, there was a very nice line in one of those paragraphs there. The Prabhupada says, the life of the Krishna consciousness movement is nourished by these 6 loving exchanges. Yes. Anything else? That was the first verse that we spoke about last week. What else did we discuss? I must be a really bad teacher. Yes, Smita Mataji.
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Yes.
The ways by which we should honor the devotees, the one who is just started chanting, we should offer obeisances in mind, and one who is initiating, we should offer dandavats, and one who is quite high in their, I don't know, maybe wrong, like highest devotees, we should seek their association.
Yeah.
And we should serve them.
That's the verse, verse number 5, describing 3 types of devotees. Yes, and Rupa Goswami chooses, when he's describing the highest devotee, there's one quality he chooses to highlight in the verse. What quality is that?
Is it humility? Or...
Yes, but there's one thing he says that what shows their humility is something that they do not do. Yes, Mita Mataji?
Doesn't find fault in others, Prabhu.
Yeah, he doesn't find fault in others. He's devoid of the propensity to criticize others. Yeah, like they just won't do it. They just won't do it. One of the 6 Goswamis of Vrindavan, Raghunath Bhatta Goswami, was like that. Nothing. Just would not hear anything. Nothing. Like that. Yeah, so thank you very much. So yeah, the verse number 5 discussed the 3 types of devotees, and Prabhupada has this discussion going on about the Kanishta, Madhyam, and Uttama devotee. Like that. Yeah, so thank you very much. So let's continue with text number 6.
Wait, how are we text number 6?
We've done 5.
How are we?
Right? Who is it speaking? Oh, I guess it was by mistake. Okay. Yes, sir. We are verse number 6, right, everybody? I'm right? Yes, number 6? I can't see anybody nodding.
Yes.
It's number 6, right? Yeah. Okay. Oh, yeah, this was 6. Okay. I'm not daydreaming then. Okay, but before we continue, we will hear Srila Prabhupada offer his prayers to the 6 Goswamis of Vrindavan. I offer my respectful obeisances unto the 6 Goswamis, namely Sri Rupa Goswami, Sri Sanatan Goswami, Sri Raghunath Bhatta Goswami, Sri Raghunath Das Goswami, Sri Jiva Goswami, and Sri Gopal Bhatta Goswami, who are very expert in scrutinizingly studying all the revealed scriptures with the aim of establishing eternal religious principles for the benefit of all human beings. Thus they are honored all over the 3 worlds, and they are worth taking shelter of because they are absorbed in the mood of the gopis and are engaged in the transcendental loving service of Radha and Krishna. She said, Goswami Prabhu ki jai. So yes, so Rupa Goswami will be sharing with us more about the process of Krishna consciousness in the next 2 verses today. And I was hearing something very nice about Rupa Goswami recently before we move on to the text itself. That Srila Rupa Goswami, sometimes when we hear Shastra, we take the statements of Shastra like a stick. We take it as a stick and we hit ourselves with it. Bang, 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 bang. And it's like, why don't you do that? Why don't you do that? Oh, you didn't do it. Why didn't you do that? So we take unconsciously, sometimes we may do that to ourselves. And this devotee, you probably all know him, Īśopaniṣad Prabhu, very nice scholarly devotee. He has 65 classes on Nectar of Instruction. 65 classes he has. That's how much you can elaborate on the Nectar of Instruction. We only have, how many classes? 6? He has 65. And it's quite amazing. If you're interested, please find him on YouTube. Īśopaniṣad Das, that's his channel. And he was describing how Rupa Goswami, he is speaking to us here as a father. He's lovingly telling us this is the path we should take on for your own benefit. He's not saying these things to smash us on the head, oh you lowly jiva, no. He has so much love for everybody. And in this prayer that Prabhupada sang just now, there's 8 verses in this prayer. And in the first one it says, Dhira Dhira Jana Priya. So Dhira and Adhira. Dhira means those who are sober, and Adhira means those who are not sober. And Prabhupada translates that as the ruffians and the devotees. These Goswamis have love for both of them. They're not sectarian. So they have love for, and they are dear to these 2 classes of people as well. because they're so loving to everybody. They're not thinking, okay, I like you and I don't like you. No, they're thinking about the whole world. So Rupa Goswami, when he's writing these verses, he's speaking that out of concern and compassion for all of us. So that's the spirit in which we should take these verses, not that, oh God, somebody telling me off again what I'm not doing. No, Rupa Goswami wants us to grow in our Krishna consciousness and make the most of this life. So I thought that was very nice when I heard this. Like, we tend to take Shastra in a very like black and white way, but this is a person. We're associating with Rupa Goswami right now, and with Srila Prabhupada right now, and they're here to help us, like that. So here we have text number 6, and again, this is the third verse that's describing Sadhu Sangha. Sadhu Sangha. There's 3 verses in the Nectar Structure discusses Sadhu Sangha, and this verse is discussing about how we should see the very, very advanced devotees. So let's go through the verse. Drishtei svabhava janiterva pushascha dosher na prakritatva bhakta janasya pashyet gangam vasam na kalu buddhapena panke brahma dravatvam apagacchati niradharmai. Being situated in his original Krishna conscious position, a pure devotee does not identify with the body. Such a devotee should not be seen from a materialistic point of view. Indeed, one should overlook a devotee as having a body born in a low family, a body with a bad complexion, a deformed body, or a diseased or infirm body. According to ordinary vision, such imperfections may seem prominent in the body of a pure devotee. But despite such seeming defects, the body of a pure devotee cannot be polluted. It is exactly like the waters of the Ganges, which sometimes during the rainy season are full of bubbles, foam and mud. The Ganges waters do not become polluted. Those who are advanced in spiritual understanding will bathe in the Ganges without considering the condition of the water. Wow, so this is a very deep verse here. Please note, devotees, that Prabhupada uses the emphatic term should. The Sanskrit word using this word is pashyet, janasya pashyet. So pashyet means you should do this. It is not an option. We should be seeing the devotees like this. So let's find out more about what Rupa Goswami means here. Prabhupada will explain in the book. So coming back to our devotional kripa, we are dealing with Sadhu Sangha. If you want to increase this shraddha, then you have to make association with the devotees. And here here we have a chart that summarizes all of these points that Prabhupada is making in this purport to this verse of Sri Upadeshamrita. Basically, all the things we should not do. This is actually a warning. This is a warning, dear devotees, about how we should not see those very, very advanced souls. But also, although this verse is describing the topmost devotee, the Mahabhagavat devotee, but still is also a warning how you see all other devotees as well. We will discuss that in more detail as we go along. Here, let's go through this chart very quickly, at least the headings. It says the first one is, we say no to criticism of the bodily defects of a Vaishnava. We're not going to see a devotee for how his body is. The second one, we say no to criticism or neglect because of birth. We won't judge a devotee because of where they come from, which country they're born in. Third, say no to criticism of apparent misbehavior. We should not criticize them when they're seemingly behaving not in an appropriate way. 4, we say no to materialistic vision. We should not observe the activities from a material point of view. And number 5, we say no to mistreatment of an empowered Vaishnava. And 6, we say no to attempts to discipline, advise, or correct. We'll explore all these things in detail as we go through the purport. So Srila Prabhupada, he comments on Srila Rupa Goswami's words. He is defining Shuddha Bhakti. Shuddha Bhakti, the activity of the soul proper, in other words, engagement in the transcendental loving service of the Lord is performed in a liberated condition. In the Bhagavad Gita, it is stated, Mamcha yo vyabhicharena bhakti yogena sevate sagunan samatityetam brahma bhuyaya kalpati. One who engages in full devotional service, who does not fall down in any circumstances, at once transcends the modes of nature and thus comes to the level of Brahman. So Srila Prabhupada here in the very beginning of this purport is defining what pure devotional service is. Basically he's saying pure devotional service is, as it says here, is performed in a liberated condition. In a liberated condition, he says. And why is he doing this? He's explaining this so that we can understand the platform of the pure, unalloyed devotee that's mentioned in this verse. Prabhupada would often use that term, unalloyed devotee. What does unalloyed devotee mean? An alloy is basically a combination of two pure metals, and therefore is no longer pure, therefore it's an alloy. Yes, Purnakshavu?
So I was going to answer your question, but then I realised it wasn't. You're being rhetorical.
Oh, but you can tell me if you like, it's fine.
Oh no, I think pure in terms of modes would be has no other interest but to
Yes.
but to serve. So when Draupadi is screaming for Krishna, she first looks at Bhishma and Drona and everyone else when they're taking her clothes off, and she said, Krishna, why did you take so long to come? She said, because you were looking for other people for help first. You didn't look for me first. You went for others. You went to others. Then you looked for me. Then you finally realized that your total focus was on me, and then I came. So it's about no tinge of 1% of I'm doing all this bhakti, but also make sure I can afford wallpaper next week, whatever it is. There's no material tinge in that, no material desire. The only purpose of bhakti is to want more bhakti.
Yeah, yes, definitely. Thank you, Prabhu. Yes. So that's what unalloyed devotee means. It's not like a mixed metal. So alloy is two metals mixed together, so it's not pure metal anymore. So unalloyed means they're not mixed. It's unmixed devotion. This devotee doesn't have mixed motivations. The only thing is to purely serve Krishna for Krishna's pleasure. And Prabhupada will be quoting a very important verse. He doesn't quote it here. He quoted it earlier, I think. This Anyabhilashita Shunyam verse from a Nectar of Devotion. Anyabhilashita Shunyam Jnana Karmadi Anavitam Anukulina Krishnanu Bhakti Uttamam. So like that, this verse is describing how pure devotional service means Uttama Bhakti, pure devotion, topmost devotion, is basically one has no Anyabhilashita Shunyam, one has no desire for anything selfish. And Anyabhilashita Shunyam Jnana Karmadya Narvitam. It is not tinged with jnana, it is not tinged with karma. And Anukulyena Krishnanu Shilanam. You're serving Krishna as Krishna desires, in a way that's favorable towards Krishna. Yes, Purna Kishore.
Sorry, just one more point on that. I mean, I'm just trying to clarify it in my head. Does that also mean that is the level when you're asking for nothing else but more Krishna? But that's when you actually really become serious of getting out of the material world, because there isn't any material tinge left. So your focus is, this is a horrible place. If it's comfortable 1 minute or I'm in a nice chair, that's just an illusion. Really, I just want to do more and more service. I want to get out of it. So I want to go to the place where it's constant service. I mean, is there like a little switch that you'd say, in terms of your intentions? Well, obviously, if your intentions are changing, that means you're a different level of purity there in terms of your desire. Like your desire is now changed as well. Yeah. Intention then changes, desire changes. So your desire becomes, because if you're interested in anything material, then you can't have that pure unalloyed. It's not unalloyed then. So you got to want to get out of it and go, this is even if it's nice, it's gross. I don't want to be here. Anyway, that's just my thoughts going in my head.
Well, actually what you were just describing, actually even that's not completely pure, because if you desire to get out,
you want something, you want something,
you want something out of it, because you get subtle here. It's like living free from the desire for your own liberation. Your only focus is only to please Krishna.
So you're in a stasis of service, like you're not even thinking of
base of
service.
service, yeah. Because
Yeah.
liberate, one devotee was nicely describing this, how a devotee does not concern himself with liberation. Why? Because if I start desiring liberation, it contaminates my devotional service. Because liberation is a byproduct of bhakti anyway, so why bother about it?
So unalloyed also means selfless, because that is
Completely selfless, yeah.
So the ego, or what I want, is not even important. What Krishna wants,
Yeah.
and it's natural. It's not like I'm now going to think what does Krishna want. It's just my state of being. I'm decontaminated to such an extent that I've hit my natural rupa, whatever, rupa siddhi, or whatever it is. My relationship, my total relationship. Okay, that's really interesting.
Yeah, it's, as you can see, the devotee is very high level. And Prabhupada says, he quotes his verse from Bhagavad Gita, that person has transcended the modes of material nature. Really, what this verse is talking about in relation to devotional service is somebody at the level of bhava. At that level, you're beyond the modes. It's very advanced, very advanced. And you will see at the conclusion of this purport, Prabhupada will refer to bhava. So like Prabhupada is pinpointing to that already here. So yes, this devotee is, bhava is liberated stage. Very advanced and incredibly selfless. Incredibly selfless. Like that. So yes, so therefore we are urged here by this verse that we have to become madhyama devotees. We'll talk about the 3 types of devotees. We have to become at least the intermediate devotee. Start to become a madhyama devotee, because then we can distinguish and discriminate different between who is who. And a madhyama devotee has knowledge. They're cultivating knowledge to try to understand these things. So Prabhupada continues, Avyabhicharini bhakti means unalloyed devotion. A person engaged in devotional service must be free from material motives. In this Krishna consciousness movement, one's consciousness must be changed. If consciousness is aimed towards material enjoyment, it is material consciousness. And if it is aimed towards serving Krishna, it is Krishna consciousness. A surrendered soul serves Krishna without material considerations, anyabhilashita shunyam. Jnana karamadi anavritam, unalloyed devotional service, which is transcendental to the activities of the body and mind, such as jnana, mental speculation, and karma, fruitive work, is called pure bhakti yoga. Bhakti yoga is the proper activity of the soul, and when one actually engages in unalloyed, uncontaminated devotional service, he is already liberated. Sagunan samatityetan. Krishna's devotee is not subjected to material conditions, even though his bodily features may appear materially conditioned. One should therefore not see a pure devotee from a materialistic point of view. Unless one is actually a devotee, he cannot see another devotee perfectly. As explained in the previous verse, there are 3 types of devotees: Kanishta Adhikari, Madhyama Adhikari, and Uttama Adhikari. The Kanishta Adhikari cannot distinguish between a devotee and non-devotee. He is simply concerned with worshipping the deity in the temple. A Madhyama Adhikari, however, can distinguish between the devotee and non-devotee, as well as between the devotee and the Lord. Thus he treats the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the devotee and the non-devotee, in different ways. Here we go, Prabhupada is urging us, become Madhyam. We all have to become Madhyam devotees. And Prabhupada says that the Madhyam devotee treats Krishna, the devotee, and the non-devotee in different ways. Who remembers what are the different ways they treat these 3 different personalities? So what's the difference in the way they treat Krishna, the devotee, and the non-devotee? Does anybody remember? It's a verse Prabhupada quotes in the previous verses that we did previous purports we read last week. It's a verse that has this phrase, Prema Maitri Kripapeksha. So Prema means as for Krishna, you love Krishna. Maitri means friendship, you become friends with the devotees. And Kripapeksha is referring to the non-devotees. So Kripa and Upeksha. So Kripa, you feel compassionate, you feel merciful towards the non-devotees who are innocent. But then the non-devotees who tend to be envious and very, injurious in the way they view devotees, therefore you just stay away from them. You stay away from the envious. So the Madhyama devotee is distinguishing in this way. So before we continue, let's look back at the verse, today's verse, text number 6. If you can see the word there's a particular word that stands out, that is repeated a few times in Prabhupada's translation. Pure devotee. The term pure devotee is mentioned 3 times here. Pure devotee, pure devotee. And as we were talking about earlier, this verse and purport is kind of describing the topmost pure devotee, who's at bhava, as we were saying. The liberated stage. They're completely absorbed in Krishna consciousness in their liberated stage. Yes, Purna Kishore Guru.
And as soon as you put this verse up, I thought of Jayapataka Swami. I'm sure other people did as well.
Yeah.
I mean, with the huge obeisances, of course, just remarkable. I mean, just absolutely incredible. I mean, I assume everyone knows who it is, but just remarkable.
Very amazing, yes. Jayapataka Maharaj ki jai. So yes, this verse is describing those very, very exalted devotees who are beyond the modes of nature. But I wanted to bring out a subtle point here in regards to the term pure devotee. How do we define pure devotee? You know, yes, this verse and purport is discussing the nature of the Mahabhagavat and how to deal with him. But does that mean we only respect the devotees on that level? You know, okay, I only respect and honor the devotees who are right up there. The Kanishta and Madhyam maybe a little bit, but those Kanishtas, ooh, you know, just ignore them. We will just not talk to them. They're not within my, you know. I just go right to the top and glorify them and serve them and respect them. Is that correct? Yes, Purna Kishore Guru.
I was just reading in this a week ago. If you see that, there's a debate so when they first put the temple up in Mumbai, they started distinguishing between pure devotees and non-pure devotees, and these two groups kept fighting, and Prabhupada had to come down and go, hang on, why are you calling people pure and not pure? You're all this progress of just starting, and yet you've got this label, you misuse these labels. So they were learning these labels, and they were just like, because I'm doing pujari work, I'm now whatever, you know, and then no one was getting on and no one was doing anything properly. So it just led to a big clash. So and then you had to come down and sort it out. So I think this is like a very rare person, right? It's like 1 in a billion. I mean, there's 10 million ISKCON devotees in the world apparently, and that must be about 5 of these or something, or 30 of these.
Well, based on this definition of this verse, this is very rare. This is very rare. But Prabhupada also defines it in different ways. Like he does the reverse of what we just said. You know, like in one sense, the pure devotee definitely bhava platform. You know, Sagunan Samatitya, as Prabhupada says. But Prabhupada also in different places he would say different things. For example, one very well-known statement that Prabhupada made was that one time somebody asked Prabhupada, it was very early on in the movement, very early on, and probably he was still in America then, and then the devotees asked Prabhupada, how many pure devotees do we have in ISKCON? And Prabhupada asked, how many devotees do we have in ISKCON? Of such and such number, Prabhupada. And Prabhupada said, oh, but we have such and such number of pure devotees. So Prabhupada, how he's defining pure devotees here, he's looking at you would surmise he's looking at their intention. Because those people who were joining his movement, they left all of their opulent families, whoever was from very affluent families, and joined him, just wanting to be devotees. So Prabhupada was bringing that element out. And there's another place where Prabhupada, in his famous Nectar of Devotion lectures he gave in Vrindavan, if you've ever listened to them, it's wonderful nectar. He's speaking these classes right in front of Rupa Goswami's Samadhi. He gave his classes there. And somebody asked Prabhupada that question, who's a pure devotee? And Prabhupada says, like without missing a beat, he replied, if your intention is pure, you're a pure devotee, whether you're Kanishta, Madhyam, or Uttam, he said. So he said, there he's defining pure in terms of motivation. What's your motivation? What's your intention? Is my intention to actually try and be a devotee, or am I coming here to get some profit or to do something else? What's your intention? So somebody may be very low in their Krishna consciousness, just beginning, but their intention is that I want to become a real devotee. So that makes them a pure devotee in that sense. Like that. You know? And there's another quote by Prabhupada where he says, he's bringing out this subtlety. He's from Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya Lila, chapter 15, text number 106. And there he's saying, When one is situated on the neophyte platform, one cannot understand the devotional ingredients of a pure, unalloyed devotee. So the neophyte devotee does understand. However, when the novice engages in devotional service, especially in deity worship, and follows the order of the bona fide spiritual master, he is a pure devotee. So he's a neophyte, but how is he a pure devotee? He's a pure devotee. Why? Because he's engaging in deity worship and following the order of the guru. That makes him a pure devotee. Anyone can take advantage of hearing about Krishna consciousness from such a devotee. So you can even hear from such a devotee and thus gradually become purified. In other words, any devotee who believes that the holy name of the Lord is identical with the Lord is a pure devotee, even though he may be in the neophyte stage. By his association, others may also become Vaishnavas. So you see subtle points here. It's not black and white. It's not black and white. So if you want to find that quote, it is in Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya Lila, chapter 15, text number 106. So here, there's another quote from the same chapter where Prabhupada says, although he may apparently be a neophyte devotee, he still has to be considered a pure, unalloyed Vaishnava. And here's one story I would like to, that you all know very well actually, but I would like to highlight this story here. You know the story of Dhruva Maharaj? You know Dhruva Maharaj, he, if you don't know the stories, his stories in Srimad Bhagavatam, he's that little boy. He's the king of the emperor of the universe, basically. And he's the son of his father, but his father also has another wife, other than his mother. So he has a stepmother and he has a stepbrother. So he wants to sit in the lap of his father, but his stepmother comes and says, how dare you sit in the lap of your father? My son should be sitting there. You should not sit there. If you want to sit on his lap, you should die and take birth from my womb, and then you can sit on it. So his stepmother really insulted him, big time. So little Dhruva, I think he was probably just 5 or 6 or something, very young, and he just got like really angry. But he was like he was of a Kshatriya nature, you know, although he was very young. So he was like, oh, this is not correct. And he went to his mother. What do I do? You know, he went to his mother and said, you know, my stepmother said this to me, blah blah blah. And then his stepmother was like seems like she was a very nice devotee. And she tells him, you know, what can we do? You know, it's true, I'm not your father's favorite wife, so this is the case. But she tells him that, well, if you want to get what you want, and then Dhruva says, you know what? I want a kingdom greater than my father's kingdom. Well, greater than my great grandfather. He was something greater than this, you know. And then his mother says, well, the only person who can help you is the Lord, Supreme Personality of Godhead. You should go find him. He can help you. And she speaks a very beautiful verse, and she tells Dhruva that Krishna is more affectionate than millions of mothers. So he's very soft-hearted, so you should go find him. So then Dhruva, he goes to the forest, where he says, where can I go find him? And then his mom tells him, well, it is said that that you can find him in the forest. So he goes to the forest looking for the Lord, and he meets Narada Muni, and Narada Muni tells him, okay, you're looking for the Lord, and then so you should do this and this. So he should perform some austerities to attract the attention of the Lord. Actually, it's not the austerity that he gave him. He gave him the mantra to chant while he's performing austerities to attract the attention of Lord Narayan. So eventually he goes through all of these great austerities, trying to attract the attention of the Lord. And eventually what happens, his austerities are so great, it's disturbing the entire universe. And the demigods go to Lord Narayan and say, oh Lord, please help us. This boy's tapasya is disturbing all of us. And it's described that he restricted the breathing of the entire universe just by his tapasya. And Lord Narayan was like, okay, I'll go and see him. So Lord Narayan appears in front of him. And little Dhruva gets darshan of Lord Narayan. And Dhruva, by that point, by the power of his sadhana, of his practice of Krishna consciousness that he did, he became purified of his material desire. And so when he sees Lord Narayan, he prays to Lord Narayan by saying that, you know, now I have found a diamond, and I was looking for broken glass. So like that he meets the Lord, and he becomes a pure devotee. He becomes a great devotee. And Lord Narayan blesses him. Yeah, you can. I don't know. He actually eventually says he does get a planet greater, a kingdom greater that is even his father's kingdom eventually. So Dhruva, becoming such an enlightened person by now, he goes back to his kingdom, and he's welcomed with open arms by everybody. It's wonderful. So here's an interesting thing. Sometime after this story, what happens? His stepbrother dies when they grow up, and his stepmother Suruchi, also ends up dying in a very horrible way. She gets burned up in the forest or something, if I'm not mistaken. And it's described in the purport that the reason Suruchi died like that was a result of her Vaishnava aparad. And what was her Vaishnava aparad? Was that she insulted Dhruva all these years ago when he wanted to sit on the lap of his father. So one may wonder, like, well, he was not a devotee then. Right? He wasn't a devotee. So why is it conservation? But eventually, he became such a great devotee. So even though somebody may not be a great devotee yet, one is just simply, practicing. One should still be careful. We should not offend devotees because, who knows who they will become. You have to be so careful. Yes, Suruchi, Prabhupada says that was a Vaishnava Aparad what she did. So she had to suffer a reaction for that. So yes, I didn't know that before until I had to prepare for this seminar a few years ago. I was like, wow, that's very deep. We should be very careful with all devotees, otherwise we should be very careful. So let's go back to Prabhupada's commentary. So what I was trying to highlight here was that we can therefore see the purport and this verse on two levels. The first level is the Mahabhagavad great devotees who've transcended the modes of nature, but also those devotees who are practicing the path of pure devotional service as well. We should be very careful. So we have to understand the things that we should not do should apply to both categories. So Prabhupada says, no one should criticize the bodily defects of a pure devotee. If there are such defects, they should be overlooked. What should be taken into account is the spiritual master's main business, which is devotional service, pure service to the Supreme Lord. So Prabhupada here is describing this topmost devotee as the spiritual master. So you should take into account the spiritual master's main business, which is devotional service, pure service to the Supreme Lord. As stated in Bhagavad Gita 9.30, Apiche suduracharo vajate mam ananyabhag sadur eva samantavya samyag vyavastito hisa. Even if a devotee sometimes seems to engage in abominable activities, he should be considered a sadhu, a saintly person, because his actual identity is that of one engaged in the loving service of the Lord. In other words, he is not to be considered an ordinary human being. So Prabhupada is highlighting here the bodily defects of a pure devotee. We should not judge devotees by their outer covering, the bodily defects. But we could expand upon that with bodily defects. That also includes, because Prabhupada will later on talk about the external features. We should look at the internal features, not the external features. So bodily defects could also include, certain sometimes we have, what's the word? I can't remember the word. Eccentricities of a person, in terms of one's personality, their psychological traits, or even the perspectives on worldly events. A very beginner devotee, a neophyte devotee, can get very bewildered by this because they're thinking that such a devotee is an ordinary person. So my spiritual master once was, yes, Puno Kishore Guru.
Does defect also include that Bhagavad Gita 9.30 point about the abominable action, which is like a moral defect?
Yeah, that's how you get this expanded definition, something which is includes abominable activities, or by that, just to know, this verse is talking about accidental fall downs as well. Accidental fall downs, not premeditated fall downs, accidental fall downs. If you want more, if devotees, all of you here, if you want more detailed information about this verse, please refer to Bhagavad Gita, where Prabhupada very much discusses this verse. This verse, especially in today's ISKCON world, this verse is quite an important verse to discuss properly, actually, because I know one devotee told me that this is probably one verse of the Bhagavad Gita that has been abused a lot to kind of, not to kind of not see the certain mistakes done by certain people. So this verse shouldn't be used just like that. We should know what it means. It's referring to accidental fall downs. And Prabhupada says in the purport to Bhagavad Gita, to this verse, that a devotee who's repeatedly doing the same thing again and again and again, that should be understood as like they're just not very advanced. We should understand that. But
I had,
yeah.
this is probably, if it's off topic and inappropriate, you can just tell me, but just we can just move on. But so about a week ago, I was doing a Bhagavad Gita class, and a lady waited outside the class, and she came up to me, and she said, "She's talking about someone very senior in the temple here, so who gives a lot of Bhagavatam classes, does a lot of Pujari work, he does a lot of the Mangalatis." So she and her mother, for some reason, decided to. So the mother worked with this devotee at work, and this devotee was involved in some sexual harassment spat, where he'd apparently been doing some sexual harassment. Yeah. And so the mother then told the GBC and tried to get him to stop doing Pujari work and doing Bhagavatam. And I just felt that was like way over the top. And I didn't say anything because I don't like getting involved in stuff. I don't get involved in stuff. I just think that's the material energy. It's powerful, people make mistakes. And so, but she was like trying to get me sort of to take a view on it. And I said, I just basically had to go and I just left, but it got me thinking like for me, it was like forgiveness is such a big important part of Vaishnava life. If we don't have that, then we're never really gonna, and we don't know what people are in there. They may be outwardly doing X, but they're inwardly fighting to improve themselves very hard, and they come in this life from previous births with previous peak conditioning, and it's too easy to judge too quickly. So I was like, maybe she'd been given a lot of leeway, but this seems to be obviously an issue with a lot of people just in this particular temple. So I don't get involved in this issue, but as soon as you mentioned that verse 9.3, this figured in my head that this has happened a week ago, and my view is that needs to be forgiven. I mean, I know it's an aberration, and then you've got this whole debate around religious institutions and them hugging stuff and letting a different level of morality in the world out there, where a court might get someone arrested, but in Krishna consciousness, it's sort of okay. And how do you kind of, how far do you take that abominable action and defect? So anyway, I just kind of went, that's he's done so much good stuff. I can't look at just one bad thing, and I'm sure Krishna wouldn't just look at one bad moment in his life and go, therefore you're a write-off. I don't think it works. Krishna has infinite mercy as well. So I kind of just walked away and didn't want to get involved. So that was my position on it. But I don't know if I was right or wrong. But
Well, yeah, it's a very sensitive discussion nowadays, and what I've also understood about how to apply this verse is that there's certain sometimes devotees may do things which are like really, really questionable, and as a society we have to take certain decisions. Like if somebody has done something really bad, some action has to be taken on a social level. Okay, maybe that person is a harm to himself or herself and to everyone around them. So as a society, maybe that person cannot do this anymore, cannot do that anymore. And those decisions are taken by those who are in authority positions. And yes, when they do somebody does something wrong, it shouldn't be brushed under the carpet. It should be addressed in a way that's going to be good for that person themselves, so that they can get the help they need. And that has to happen, depending on what the severity of the offense is, etc. These things have to happen. But also there's our own internal world as devotees. So yeah, that has happened. Whatever that person did, they did that, and that was not good. That was not good. But here Rupa Goswami is telling us, Prabhupada is telling us, how do we take it internally in our hearts? How should we see this devotee? So yes, you have the social thing where yes, you have to deal with this person and make sure that you don't do it again, etc., etc. But then for our own development of devotees, how should we see them? What mindset should we have that's going to help us protect our Krishna consciousness and help us grow in our Krishna consciousness and not bring us down? So what tends to happen, sometimes we get into this frenzy of trying to make sure that this person is corrected, and which externally is good. But then if you take on that mood inside your heart for a long time, that's going to really make you into a bitter person. Because what's really going to help you progress is actually a mood of forgiveness. Okay, they've been so bewildered by Maya. it's terrible what they did, but I have to feel compassionate for them because who knows what I did in the previous life. So you see, it's like one understanding is like there's this balance there that should be there. So that in that way, so yeah, this verse is describing how we should see them. But yeah, but this verse does not negate the fact that action should be taken whenever.
That's very useful, brother. Thank you very much. Sorry about
Yeah.
difficult. Right.
I know in the West we talk a lot about what's the term used? What is it? Cancel
culture. Yeah.
Cancel culture, and yes, and a devotee does not cancel anybody. You know, again, despite how many wrong things they may have done, actually they understand this is a jiva. Remember we're talking about the view of the Mahatma? Like the whole world is their family basically, because they see everyone connected to Krishna. A Duratma is only like, okay, they're connected to me, therefore they're my friends, and I like them and I don't like you. But in Mahatma's view is like connecting everybody together, and therefore they're able to have compassion for everybody. So we want to come closer to that, not artificially, but we understand that it's okay, we should apply this here. Yes, this person has made a mistake in that way, maybe this devotee did this mistake, maybe it was only a one-off thing, maybe, we hope so. Maybe they got bewildered by Maya, the senses are very strong, like that. But like this verse says, that because he's still fixed in trying to be a devotee, he just wants to keep trying. We respect them for that. And of course, like respect as well, there's different levels of respect. You offer respect based on the level of advancement of that person. So somebody who sometimes has, let's say there's a devotee who did something really, really bad, but they're still trying to be a devotee. So you may not offer dandavats to them when you see them, but like you may want to keep a distance from them. But in your mind, in your heart, you don't nurture animosity towards them. You just offer them respect. It's okay. He's still trying to be a devotee, like that. Yeah, I hope that's okay. Yeah. So coming back to the bodily defects of a Vaishnava, of a great person. So that could also include like some defects in their personality, some eccentricities, psychological traits, or even the perspectives on worldly events might be like, okay, this is strange. So a neophyte devotee could get bewildered by this, thinking that advanced devotee to be an ordinary person. So my spiritual master gave Prabhupada's example actually. The spiritual master, when he was talking on this verse, he gave the example of Prabhupada, that once Prabhupada, there was two of his disciples. They were trying to put all the properties in ISKCON, I think, or at least in, let's say, Europe. ISKCON, all properties in ISKCON in Europe, or maybe let's say the whole world for the sake of this discussion. So yeah, all the properties under one entity, you know. And if you did that, apparently you would be able to borrow money from the bank. And what happened when they told Prabhupada they would do that? I think that either they already did it or they were going to do it. Prabhupada got so angry. He got really, really upset. He got really angry with that because Prabhupada wanted all temples to be like able to stand on their own 2 feet, be like separate entities, from what I understand. So Prabhupada got very angry with that. So devotees were a bit bewildered that Prabhupada, why did he get so livid? They could not understand, you know, like that. So therefore, but we understand when the pure devotees, when those advanced devotees like Prabhupada, they get angry. They get angry for a reason. It's not out of false ego, or you're not doing what I'm doing, what I'm telling you to do. They're getting angry for the purification of the disciple, to be able to teach them properly. Another example that my spiritual master gave in this connection is, you know, Prabhupada's stance on the moon landing episode. You know, when America landed on the moon. I know a lot of non-devotees don't believe that either, but you know, when the astronauts landed on the moon, Prabhupada was watching it live. They turned the TV on, you know, and there was one disciple who was very fired up about it. Prabhupada, they're going on the moon, and Prabhupada was just like, okay. He wasn't so flustered. He wasn't so excited about it. He was very neutral, and he actually kind of wasn't so interested in it either. I was like, okay, he wasn't so impressed. And then because Prabhupada was not really like getting carried away by the whole frenzy of this whole moon landing thing. That disciple who was very, very into it, that damaged his faith a bit. He couldn't accept that Prabhupada didn't see how wonderful it was, you know, and he just eventually he became if I'm not mistaken, it's there in Lilamrita, that episode, if you want to know more. he became a bit disenchanted in his spiritual life, and eventually, if I'm not mistaken, he left after that. So yeah, so seeing these things that I perceive to be a defect, his perspective on the moon landing is not correct. It's like a defect, you know. And Prabhupada actually mentions that I don't think they went to the moon. They either went on Rahu or didn't go at all, because the moon doesn't look like that. The moon is actually very shiny, you know. And as we know from Shastra, there's people on the moon as well. It's a whole planet, so like that. So yeah, so that's 2 examples. Another example is that of Vaṁśīdas Babaji. You know, it's not me. I'm not Vaṁśīdas Babaji. My name is Vaṁśīvaṭa. Vaṁśīdas Babaji was a contemporary of Srila Bhakti Siddhanta. He was on the planet when Bhakti Siddhanta was here, and he was what you would call an avaduta. You know, they just the way they behave is beyond like worldly. You know, just beyond. They behave in very interesting ways. They're not of this world anymore. That's why. Like Lord Nityananda is described to be an avaduta. He would do funny things in his ecstasy, you know, like that. So Vaṁśīdas Babaji was an avaduta, and he would do things like, I'll give you an example. He was very incredibly advanced devotee, very, very advanced devotee, and he had very special. His life revolved around his deities, Gaur Gadadhara, Lord Nityananda, Radha Krishna, and Gopal. He had his deities in his bhajan kuti. So he was what you would call a bhajan anandi. He would be on his own. So he had a very eccentric, what you would think would be, what we consider to be very eccentric behavior. So one time there was a lady who came to him to sell fish. The lady was selling fish, and for some reason his mind got drawn by the idea, and he got, oh my God, what is this? So he told the lady to go away. He got really angry. How could this happen? How could this happen? So he went to his deities and began chastising his deities. How could you do this? How could you do this to me? You know, and what he did, he tied his deities of Radha and Krishna and threw them in the Ganga. You go there now, punishment for what you did to me, and just stood there waiting for the rope. And when this happened, devotees heard about it and they went to Bhaktisiddhanta, and Bhaktisiddhanta told them, okay, from now on you don't go there. Okay, you don't go there. No, you should go there, and left it at that. And then the next day he called all of his disciples again and told them that, you know, you may have thought that I prevented you from going there because he is in Maya, but actually he is not in Maya. I've prevented you from going there because you will not understand his personality. His ecstasy is not, you can't understand it, so better you don't go there because you might commit some offenses. You know, so therefore he told them that, don't go there. So that's a very extreme example, but yeah, it's like that. That's one example. I think Brandon Prabhu had his hand first. Yes, Brandon Prabhu?
Hare Krishna. I was just wondering, so with the defects, that also includes then one, like a devotee's material knowledge. And so does it mean if someone judges a devotee upon material knowledge that they think to be correct but might not be correct, that would also come under this bracket too?
Yeah, definitely. You will probably make a statement later on which kind of elaborates on that. He says we should not see a devotee based on the external features. So that would fall under external features. So like, for example, Prabhupada one time he's speaking and he says, what did he say? You know that farm called New Vrindavan in America? It's in a place called West Virginia. So Prabhupada said New Virginia and West Vrindavan. So it's just external, you know, it's not a big deal. You know, like that. Yeah, so it includes all those things. Yeah, one's education does not reflect one's devotion. How well one is able to, like, you know, give a really good class doesn't necessarily reflect their devotion. They might just be karmically very good at speaking. You know, doesn't necessarily indicate their devotion. You know? So yes, we should be careful not to judge this exalted soul falls based on those external things. Yes, Purna Kishore Prabhu?
Yeah, I was just going to make a point about the Bhakti Siddhanta story that you said. In terms of Krishna, obviously, when Krishna has a deep relationship with somebody, he likes to be chastised by them, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah. So the throwing the deities, if you're in that really deep relationship, the Lord's probably going, this guy. I mean, you know, they're loving each other so much that that's almost a form of expression of love. Throwing the deities off like that, you know. I suppose that's a very extreme high level of relationship.
Yeah. That's how we know, because that's a level of bhava and beyond, you know. So it's like a different level of exchange going on completely. Another story to do with Vaṁśīvaṭa Babaji I thought was quite sweet. We cannot imitate this, of course. Definitely we cannot imitate this, but he would never lock up his bhajan kutiri when he would go. So he said that, well, the Lord is here, he should look after his own place, you know, that kind of mood he had. So he said he has Gauranga, Nityananda and Gadadhar. So the 3 keys are with them, so they will sort it out. So what would happen, you know, like a cow would come in sometimes and ransack the whole place, or somebody would come, or one time somebody came and stole these 2 bowls that he uses to cook for his deities. And so they stole it, and he came back, there was nothing there. So he told Gaur-Nitai off, you know what? What did you do with who did you allow to take these bowls away? You know, you shouldn't have allowed them to take it. You know, if both of you do not get those bowls back, you're not going to get anything to eat. He just sat there, and eventually one thief came. Somehow he got 1 bowl back, and he told Gaur-Nitai, okay, Nityananda got his bowl back, so he will get something to eat. Lord Gauranga, you won't get anything until you get the bowl to come back. So he cooked for Nityananda and offered Nityananda, and Lord Gauranga was like, oh. And the next day, the other bowl came, and then he was able to cook for Lord Gauranga. So different level, dear devotees, different level completely. Yes, Pratik Prabhu?
I was. Prabhu, to not see these defects internally, what one should develop in ourselves, because Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati could see Vaṁśīvaṭa Babaji Maharaj like that, but not me can see all of the devotees like that, especially they're giving me trouble, or like if they're doing something else to someone else, that's easy. If they're giving trouble to me, then it's very hard.
Oh.
So what I should be having, because this I understand theoretically, but how I can implement this, like not seeing defects internally in this.
Yeah, how to focus on those defects when it's directed towards me. Yes. Well, that's our test. That's our exam, really, everyday exam. I will be honest with you, I'm myself trying to deal with that. I try to deal with that, and it's not easy. I mean, the way is basically we have to really talk to ourselves that, for example, okay, this is the external features of this devotee, and it is disturbing me. Yes, accept, yes, first of all, it's disturbing me. Don't pretend that it's not disturbing you. It is, yes, it's disturbing me. But I should know that that's the modes of nature that's around this devotee. Actually, that's not the devotee. But yes, if it's disturbing me so much, that doesn't mean we don't do anything about it. First, we try to just talk to them, and if you can't talk to them, just reason with them, then it's not working, then we go to their senior. So there's an etiquette to follow, but we can do it nicely without having to compromise our in trying to train our consciousness in this way so as not to see any defects. So it's not a case of completely pretending it's not there. We should not be blind to what we're seeing, but when it's affecting us, we should be able to reveal our minds to devotees who can help change this, you know, like that. So yes, it's a balance for us, you know, and also all devotees around us are not bhava bhaktas, you know, like we were saying, pure devotees can be also in different ways. So devotees around us are not all bhava bhaktas, so they also probably need to be corrected. So we have to talk to somebody senior who can maybe do something. Like a lot of the time, there's been situations where somebody senior than me is doing something a bit to correct. So I have to go to my senior. So, you know, this is going on. What do we do? How do we deal with this? You know? And if it's something really, really disturbing us, it's really obstructing your Krishna consciousness, you know, then maybe we just have to respectfully keep a distance, you know. Some devotees, I know Madhavananda Prabhu once said, some devotees we have to love them from far. You know, it's just that my modes of nature and their modes of nature is just not working, you know. So we have to respect them for their service and for their Krishna consciousness. But it's just that the external covering is not working, my external covering, and it's not working. So to protect my own consciousness, I maybe just keep a distance. Like that. Is that okay, Pratik Prabhu?
Yeah, thank you, Prabhu. I was just thinking, how does then have that sort of develop this kind of tolerance? I'm not just talking about troubles, but like now to understand that something is a defect or not and what should be my vision, I think that needs good sadhana and knowledge as well.
Oh, sure,
But
yes.
how to improve your own tolerance and humility, because it's not possible without it. It's, it's, it's not possible without having good tolerance levels in. So how one develops this, because this is very hard to.
Yeah. Well, you see, there's only so much we can do by our own strength. So if you remember our first class on Nectar of Instruction, we spoke about coming to the mode of goodness, etc., advancing. And I'm talking about how do we advance in Krishna consciousness. We advance by mercy, by the practice of bhakti. That's how we advance. That's how we're able to do things that we previously could not do. So really, in my experience, is that something that I was probably finding really hard to do, but when all I did was really try to attentively and submissively hear devotees talk about these things. Just by that hearing, that potency gives you some strength to be able to practice this. For example, I've been listening to Hariprasad Prabhu's classes on Nectar of Instruction. I've listened to 6 classes now, and they're all on the first verse of Upadeshamrita. And it's like, whoa, I'm getting renewed vigor to kind of try and implement these things now. Vacha Vega, Manasa, Krodha Vega, all these things. I was like, wow, just by hearing him, going so deeply into this discussion, I'm like, wow, I feel I can do this now. Because that's the power of hearing from the devotees, and hearing from advanced devotees is very powerful. So that is actually something we should always be trying to do. Always hear what Prabhupada is saying. Always hear what our spiritual masters are saying. That's why hearing is the heart of our sadhana, heart of our practice. Just by doing that, we can get so much spiritual strength. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Prabhu. Anyway.
Yes, Lisa Mataji.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, should we also be applying that to non-devotees as well, looking beyond material coverings?
Yeah, definitely. We see them as the soul as well. Yeah, we should see them as the soul. Try and see them as this living entity who they haven't discovered Krishna yet. So we try to deal with them in such a way which will benefit them, benefit their Krishna consciousness. So then it's interesting because we had how the Madhyama deals with non-devotees, right? They're compassionate to the innocent and they avoid the envious. So the reason they're compassionate to the innocent is that if they're innocent, like they're not envious of the devotees, or they're like quite receptive and respectful, is that you try to do things that benefit their own spiritual lives. So you will not judge them for like, okay, they're just somebody who's like, uneducated, I won't deal with them. No. They also need to get this gift of Krishna consciousness. So we think of how can we give it to them? Like the devotees go on books. They don't discriminate. I mean, they see who's more receptive though. Again, envious or innocent. They'll see that. So depending who's more receptive and non-envious, they'll be more likely to give them. So, and for those who are non-envious, for those who are envious, the devotee avoids those who are envious. They don't avoid the envious because they are also envious of them, or because they hate them. No, that also is done out of compassion. Because if I try to give Krishna consciousness to somebody who's envious, they will commit offenses to Krishna and devotees. So therefore, I stay away for their own benefit. In that way, one is seeing all the devotees, even non-devotees, for who they really are, as jivas who are on their path to Krishna. Some of them are not really interested, so best not to do anything that would like make them go even further away from Krishna. And with the innocent, depending on the person they're gauging, okay, what's the best way to bring them forward? Maybe sometimes all you have to be is be a friend to them. That's it. And in time, they love you so much as a friend that they start inquiring you, what your lifestyle is about. You're such a good friend to me. So it comes up in different ways. But it's the vision. It's an internal vision, isn't it? Yeah, internal vision. So yeah, so really we shouldn't judge anybody for their material covering. Whatever they have. Prabhupada will talk about this later. I don't think he talks about this here. But people would never think, before Prabhupada came to the West, nobody would even consider to go to the West to give Krishna consciousness to everybody. Even though that was Mahaprabhu's mission, his instruction to give Krishna consciousness for everybody. Prabhupada got criticized for giving deity worship to the Westerners, Why? Why judge them based on their material covering? if they're exhibiting the qualities of devotion, of devotees, then they are devotees. It doesn't matter, like that. So yes, so we shouldn't judge anybody really based on their material covering. Again, doesn't mean we're blind to it. You know, if they have something that's disturbing to others or to themselves, we should be conscious of it. But yeah, ultimately, we see them for the jiva that's meant to belong to Krishna. And that was Prabhupada's vision. You know, doesn't matter. He goes right in the middle of the hippie world, you know, in San Francisco, that where all the hippies were grouped together in that, I don't know where it was. Anyway, he was there, just starts chanting Hare Krishna. You know, I don't think any of us would do that now. For Prabhupada, that's what he did, because he saw all these jivas as belonging to Krishna. Yeah. Is that okay?
Thank you. Yes, thank you.
Yes. So we've discussed this point in great depth, actually. I have another slide for this. Yeah, the Piche Sudarachara verse. Yes. So therefore, so when we see fault in devotees, you know, we see fault in them. If it's not to do with, if the fault is not directed towards us, but if we see fault in other devotees, it is not up to us to correct them. You know, okay, that's really between Krishna and the devotee. We shouldn't think, unless we've got the service to correct them, we should not get involved. Really, you know, it's between them and Krishna. And if we're seeing they're not being injurious to anybody, we should leave it between Krishna and them. We should have faith that Krishna will take care. You know, I've written here that it doesn't mean that we become blind to everything, but it means that with intelligence, equipped with knowledge of the Bhakti scriptures, we see beyond that. You know, we're educating our minds to see beyond it. If we want to become qualified for pure bhakti, we should become devoid of the propensity to criticize others. You know, we have to try and cultivate that. Yes, Harini Manaji.
Hare Krishna, yes, you say that unless you have a service to correct people, but what service allowed to correct others?
If you're guru.
Yeah, but...
or in a managerial position.
Okay.
And that's also, managerial position also means like, you know, specifically to do with your service. That service, okay, Prabhuji, you didn't put the cup right here. You put salt in the charnamrita instead of sugar, so, you know, you shouldn't do that kind of thing. You know, you could correct to do with the services pertaining to your area of service, like that. So that would generally mean that most of us shouldn't really get into that unnecessarily. Really, honestly, if we try not to get into becoming the guru of everybody, life is much easier. You know, there is this one statement by Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, and I don't have it with me right now, but it's a beautiful quote. And Bhaktisiddhanta is writing to somebody who apparently was criticizing other devotees to him. It looks like it. But Bhaktisiddhanta tells him, he says, please do not try to become a guru like me. You know, please don't become like me, where I have the thankless task of having to find faults in everybody. Don't become like me, because, and so basically shows the mood that even though the guru has to do this service of finding faults for the benefit of the disciple, really the guru doesn't want to. He does it because he has to, he has a duty. Generally when we want to find fault with others, it's because we want to put that person down and put myself up. Oh, you know, that's generally the mood. It comes from the false ego. So that's why we have to be very careful. Yeah. So I've written here also in my notes that to become perfect in devotion doesn't mean we become controllers of who does right or who does wrong. That is Krishna's job, you know. Now, we find fault in this world because we wish to let the whole world know that I am so amazing, and then we take this person down, you know, like that. You know. So it's interesting how we understand perfection. We think perfection means there's no fault at all, you know. But that's not a complete, that meaning that there's no mistakes. But even in the spiritual realm, in the spiritual world, even that's not completely true. You know, not even with Krishna. How is that possible? Krishna's God, how can he make mistakes? Well, apparently he does, you know. Prabhupada in this, I don't know if he says it in this quote. But anyway, there's this pastime Prabhupada shares. Again, there was this one person who wrote a letter to Prabhupada, and he was telling Prabhupada how so-and-so is doing this, so-and-so is doing this. And then Prabhupada tells him, but you know, even in the spiritual realm, there's no such understanding of there's no utopia. There's no such thing as utopia, of like everything is completely perfect. You know, he gives the example that one time in Vrindavan, In the time when Krishna was milking the cows, Krishna is a cow, he's milking the cows. And who comes by? Who do you think comes by when Krishna's milking the cows? We have Srimati Radharani and her friends are coming by. And Krishna's like, oh, I'm not going to look over there. Because as you know, whatever Radharani is, Krishna becomes bewildered completely, because Radharani is the perfection of pure devotional service. It is anything that overpowers Krishna is pure devotional service. So as soon as Radharani comes by, Krishna's like pretending that I'm not going to get bewildered. I'm just going to focus on the activity of milking the cows. He's milking the cow, milking the cows. And at one point, what happens, the gopis are just behind them. And he's just like, oh no, I'm milking the cow, I'm milking the cow. And all of a sudden, all the girls stop, but they just burst into laughter. And he's like, why are they laughing? Do you know why they were laughing, dear devotees? Do you know why they were laughing at Krishna? Because Krishna, he was milking a bull, not a cow. So Prabhupada uses that pastime as an example to show, our idea, what our idea of perfection is. We think there's no mistakes coming. Actually, in this pastime, this mistake is being done out of ecstasy. This is a different category, of course. But the concept of the idea is that actually there's no such thing as everything going perfectly right all the time. So here's a beautiful letter that Prabhupada wrote to this devotee. He says, people should not expect that even in the Krishna consciousness society there will be utopia. Because devotees are persons, therefore there will always be some lacking. The difference is that they are lacking because they have given up everything to serve Krishna. Money, jobs, reputation, wealth, big education, everything. Their lackings have become transcendental because despite everything they may do, their topmost intention is to serve Krishna. One who is engaged in devotional service despite the most abominable action is to be considered saintly because he is rightly situated. The devotees of Krishna are the most exalted persons on this planet. Better than kings, all of them. So we should always remember that, and like the bumblebee, always look for the nectar or the best qualities of a person. Not like the utopians who are like the flies who always go to the open sores or the faults in the person. And because they cannot find any utopia, or because they cannot find anyone without fault, they want to become void, merge, nothing. Like that. How nice. That's very interesting, he says, because they just want to serve Krishna, their topmost intention to serve Krishna, so their lackings have become transcendental. These are things we can educate ourselves. Remember these points. That devotees are better than kings, all of them. Among all the living entities in the entire universe, who is trying to become a devotee of Krishna? No, many. So let's continue reading. Even though a pure devotee may not be born in the Brahmana or Goswami family, if he is engaged in the service of the Lord, he should not be neglected. In actuality, there cannot be a family of Goswamis based on material considerations, caste, or heredity. The Goswami title is actually the monopoly of the pure devotees. Thus we speak of the 6 Goswamis headed by Rupa Goswami and Sanatana Goswami. Rupa Goswami and Sanatana Goswami had practically become Mohammedans and had therefore changed their names to Dabir Khas and Sakar Malik. But Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself made them Goswamis. Therefore the Goswami title is not hereditary. The word Goswami refers to one who can control his senses, who is master of the senses. A devotee is not controlled by the senses, but is the controller of the senses. Consequently, he should be called Swami or Goswami, even though he may not be born in a Goswami family. So Prabhupada is denouncing discrimination based on the body. So Prabhupada himself, when ISKCON was expanding and when he went back to India, he had to face this. He had to face this in regards to his own disciples. According to this formula, the Goswamis who are descendants of Sri Nityananda Prabhu or Sri Advaita Prabhu are certainly devotees. But devotees coming from other families should not be discriminated against. Indeed, whether the devotees come from a family of previous acharyas or from an ordinary family, they should be treated equally. One should not think, oh, he is an American Goswami, and discriminate against him. Nor should one think, Here is Nityananda Vamsha Goswami. There is an undercurrent of protest against our awarding the title Goswami to the American Vaishnavas of the Krishna consciousness movement. Sometimes people flatly tell the American devotees that their sannyas or title of Goswami is not bona fide. Actually, according to the statements of Sri Rupa Goswami in this verse, an American Goswami and a Goswami in the family of Acharyas are non-different. Yes. So Prabhupada during his time, he was criticized a lot. You know. One time, when the devotees went back to India, they were in Vrindavan, and Prabhupada's disciples entered into a temple, one particular temple in Vrindavan, famous temple. And you know, in those days, seeing white-bodied devotees was a rare thing. So the pujari called them over, and he told them that, you know, in your next life, you take birth, and then you can become like me and serve the deity like me. So they were like, wow, how amazing. So they went back to Prabhupada and they told Prabhupada, and Prabhupada said, what did you tell them? You should have told them, in your next birth, you take birth in ISKCON and serve ISKCON. Like that. So basically he's pointing out that this kind of discrimination shouldn't happen. There's no difference. As I said, the title Goswami is not hereditary. It's not because you come in a family of great acharyas doesn't necessarily mean you're better than everyone else. It's about your qualities as a devotee. So on the other hand, a devotee who has attained the title of Goswami, but not born of a Brahmana father or of a Goswami in the family of Nityananda or Advaita Prabhu, should not be artificially puffed up by thinking that he has become a Goswami. So now Prabhupada is talking about the reverse thing happening. So those who have come from a background that's not very spiritual, and they get that title, they should not become puffed up. We should not become puffed up that, okay, I'm such a devotee, you know? Should always remember that as soon as he becomes materially puffed up, he immediately falls down. So Prabhupada is giving words of advice, words of caution to all of the devotees all over ISKCON. This Krishna consciousness movement is a transcendental science and there is no room for jealousy. Paramam nirmatsaranam. This movement is meant for the Paramahamsas who are completely free from all jealousy. One should not be jealous whether he is born in the family of Goswamis or has the title of Goswami awarded to him. As soon as anyone becomes envious, he falls from the platform of Paramahamsa. So this phrase that he uses here, Paramam Nirmatsaranam, completely free from all jealousy. Prabhupada translates this term in Bhagavatam as devotees who are 100% pure in heart. In other words, what Prabhupada is saying here is that those devotees who are completely pure at heart, they are free from jealousy and envy. So we should not, if we see envy coming in our heart, envy is the reason why we discriminate, why we find fault. We try to put another person down and bring ourselves up, is because we cannot appreciate that other person. We're envious of their wonderful qualities or whatever good things that they do. So yeah, envy is something we have to be very careful about. Very, very careful about. Of all the one of acharyas say, there's many qualities. Like for example, you have lust, anger, greed. Those things you can engage them in Krishna service. You dovetail them. You know, lust you engage it by getting married and having Krishna conscious children. Greed, you use greed to become greedy for Krishna conscious things. Anger, Prabhupada says earlier, as you remember in the first purport, he says you use anger for Krishna's service, you know, like that. But envy you can't use in Krishna's service. You can't dovetail it. It has to be. You have to understand. We have to first of all understand where that envy is coming from. It's coming from our false ego, and ultimately, envy of others means enviousness of Krishna. It's all stemming from enviousness of Krishna, because whatever thing you're envious of in that person is coming from Krishna. So any envy you feel is actually just envious of Krishna and his wonderful qualities and his opulences. So yes, we should be careful, and even if we all have envy, at least we should be careful not to act upon it. We have to be able to separate it in our hearts. Okay, this is enviousness. Yeah, I should be careful about this. Yes, should be careful about this. So now Prabhupada goes on to talk about something very, very important, dear devotees. Hati Mata, the mad elephant offense. If we consider the bodily defects of a Vaishnava, we should understand that we are committing an offense at the lotus feet of the Vaishnava. An offense at the lotus feet of a Vaishnava is very serious. Indeed, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has described this offense as Hati Mata, the mad elephant offense. A mad elephant can create a disaster, especially when it enters into a nicely trimmed garden. One should therefore be very careful not to commit any offense against a Vaishnava. Every devotee should be ready to take instructions from a superior Vaishnava, and a superior Vaishnava must be ready to help an inferior Vaishnava in all respects. Prabhupada talks about a certain aspect of etiquette here, that one should be ready to take instructions from a superior Vaishnava, and a superior Vaishnava reciprocates by helping the inferior Vaishnava in all respects. One is superior or inferior according to his spiritual development in Krishna consciousness. One is forbidden to observe the activities of a pure devotee from a material point of view. For the neophyte, especially, considering a pure devotee from a material point of view is very injurious. One should therefore avoid observing a pure devotee externally, but should try to see the internal features and understand how he is engaged in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. In this way, one can avoid seeing the pure devotee from a material point of view, and thus one can gradually become a purified devotee himself. So Prabhupada gives the answer here. How can I avoid looking at his external features? Says you look at the internal features, and what are the internal features? It's their Krishna consciousness. So to put it in very simple terms, it means, we could say it means that instead of criticizing this person, let me glorify this person. Glorify the internal features. One time there was an incident with Mother Jamuna and Prabhupada, and one Prabhupada disciple, other Prabhupada disciple came into Prabhupada. Jamuna is like this, he's like this, she's done this, she's done this, she's done this, and Prabhupada would say, but she cooks very nicely. And they said, but Prabhupada, she did this, and Prabhupada said, but she cooks very nicely. You know, so focusing on the wonderful good things they do in their service instead. So by doing that, seeing the internal features and not the external features. So here there's a quote from Prabhupada about the Hati Mata offense. If the devotee commits an offense at the feet of a devotee while cultivating the creeper of devotional service in the material world, his offense is compared to a mad elephant that uproots the creeper and breaks it. In this way, the leaves of the creeper are dried up. The gardener must defend the creeper by fencing it all around so that the powerful elephant of offenses may not enter. Yeah. Those who think that Krishna consciousness is limited to a certain section of people, a certain section of devotees, or a certain tract of land are generally prone to see the external features of the devotees. Prabhupada is he's kind of giving a reason why, where does this come from to see somebody externally? It's because they think Krishna consciousness is limited to a certain area. Such devotees, unable to appreciate the exalted service of the advanced devotee, try to bring the Bhagavad to their platform. We experience such difficulty in propagating this Krishna consciousness movement all over the world. Unfortunately, we are surrounded by neophyte godbrothers who do not appreciate the extraordinary activities of spreading Krishna consciousness all over the world. They simply try to bring us to their platform, and they try to criticize us in every respect. We very much regret their naive activities and poor fund of knowledge. An empowered person who is actually engaged in the confidential service of the Lord should not be treated as an ordinary human being, for it is stated that unless one is empowered by Krishna, one cannot spread the Krishna consciousness movement all over the world. So there's a few things here. Coming back to this statement that Prabhupada says, one should avoid observing a pure devotee externally, but should try to see the internal features of the devotee and how they engage in service. So when we talk about external features, what is the external feature of a devotee? the devotees. What would you consider to be an external feature?
In general, their behavior, isn't it?
Yes, Prabhu?
In general, their behavior, like
Yeah, their behavior.
the absence.
Their dress?
Their dress, yes. Or just because somebody doesn't put a dhoti and kurta or a sari doesn't mean they're not good devotees. Yeah, that's very good. I have one here, our gross body. We were talking about bodily defects earlier, but that could also mean gender, right? You know, we judge them based on the external features, their gender, because we know ISKCON's history, there has been discrimination in that regard. Also, one's age. You know, Prabhupada says, for example, it is said one may be senior without being advanced in age. Even if one is not old, one gains seniority if he is senior in knowledge, or in our case, senior in bhakti. If their devotion is more, then they are more senior. So it's not about the age. You know, one devotee was saying that who is more senior? A 100-year-old oak tree or a baby tulsi plant? Which one's more senior? So you get the idea. External features, you know? Yes. So age. Also, we're talking about personality traits of people, you know, like the subtle body, one's character, personality traits that happen to be there because they come from a place of birth, you know. Some people, they come from a particular country, so they tend to be very loud in the way they speak or express themselves, like that. So this is also there, external. Also, one I was thinking is also one's ashram. So we think, oh, we start judging somebody, so we start judging the advancement because, oh, they're in brahmacharya ashram, they must be more advanced than the grihastas. Oh, these grihastas must be very low then, you know, because they live the grihasta ashram. You know, Prabhupada says, we should never think of our so-called advancement as being conditioned by or dependent upon some set of material circumstances, such as marriage, vanaprastha, or this or that. So yes, these are some external features. So Prabhupada here in this paragraph we read just now, he's mentioning his god brothers. He's kind of being a bit critical of them. You know. And Srila Prabhupada in his books in different places, he does make some quite a few comments like that about them in his purports. So sometimes what happens, we see Prabhupada making these statements and we think that, well, we do the same with his followers, right? We start criticizing all those Prabhupada's god brothers and how they're not good and not this and that. Prabhupada's main point was that that after his Guru Maharaj left the planet, from what I understand, is that when his Guru Maharaj left the planet, his senior disciples failed in fulfilling his desire, continuing his preaching mission, and didn't continue to expand. Therefore, Prabhupada is doing this with a purpose in mind, that we do not want to end up in the same way. But is it our business to criticize them as well? They are also Vaishnavas, right? You know, should we denigrate them? Oh, you Gaudiya Bhakti Guru, you know? You're not a part of ISKCON, just like us, you know? We criticize them. But yes, we should be very careful. You know, Prabhupada is very dear to us, for sure. And he was definitely empowered to do what nobody else could do. He spread Krishna consciousness all over the world. And therefore, we're very indebted to him. But it is not Vaishnava to criticize other devotees. They are still devotees. Even disciples of Prabhupada's god brothers, they're like our cousin, you know, our cousins. You know, so there is a relationship there, but we should be careful. You know. One time Prabhupada said that when Prabhupada speaks harshly about somebody or something, he says he can speak like that, but we cannot. You know. Remember we were talking about in our last class that we should not imitate great souls. And Mother Jamuna describes how Prabhupada had a meeting with Srila Bhaktisiddhanta's brother. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta had a brother who was not in good terms with Srila Bhaktisiddhanta. But Prabhupada met him, and Prabhupada was so respectful. He was so respectful. They dealt with him with so much respect, honored his position. He was also aware of the rift between the two. So he would warn his disciples afterwards, okay, better not to associate with him so closely. But the point is, he was able to show so much respect for him, despite that. You can find more details of that story in Mother Jamuna's book. We have biographical book. So the last paragraph says, Prabhupada says, he says here in this paragraph, that unless one is empowered by Krishna, one cannot spread the Krishna consciousness movement all over the world. What does it mean to be empowered? It means you're empowered by Lord Chaitanya to preach. You're empowered by Lord Chaitanya to preach. There's this verse from Chaitanya Charitamrita. Krishna Shakti Vinanahe Tara Pravartan. Unless empowered by Krishna, one cannot propagate the Sankirtan movement. For Prabhupada to have done what he has done means he was empowered, and they all agree that. If you ever read this book called Prabhupada, Our Prabhupada, A Friend to All, have you all heard of this book? It's a very wonderful book. It's full of stories from residents of Vrindavan who knew Prabhupada from before he went to the West. And also when they met Prabhupada after he came back from the West. And there's one guru who instructed his disciple when Prabhupada came back to the West, instructed his disciple, a guru in Vrindavan, and instructed his disciple, you should go and speak to Bhaktivedanta Swami because he was empowered by Lord Nityananda to do what he did. So you have to go and seek instruction from him. So Prabhupada was seen by many of his contemporaries as a Shaktivesh avatar, as an empowered person. And there's this very beautiful story from Bibi Govinda Maharaj when he met Prabhupada's godbrother. Prabhupada had a godbrother named Akinchana Krishna Das Babaji Maharaj. I don't know if you've heard of him, but he was a very exalted devotee. He would always chant Hare Krishna, non-stop. And Prabhupada was very close to him. They had a very nice relationship. So I will just read to you something that Bibi Govinda Maharaj wrote on Facebook a few years ago. He was saying, when I first met Akinchana Krishna Das Babaji Maharaj, I looked at him and I didn't know what to say. Then he saw I had a tape player in my hands, and without me having to say anything, he just closed his eye and began to clap his hands together and sang his Mangalacharana before singing Sri Krishna Chaitanya. And then he began singing Hare Krishna mantra, and it was like going into another world. He was chanting so beautifully, and it was like each syllable was drenched in bhava and prema. After about 20 minutes, he stopped. And then he looked at me and said, so this is Babaji Maharaj speaking to Bibi Govinda Maharaj. So Babaji Maharaj told him, I would like to tell you something. I said, what? He said, I am an old man and I have had a lot of experience in this world. From my experience, I can honestly tell you there has never been a greater acharya than your spiritual master, meaning Prabhupada. When he said that, I became stunned because he was also a disciple of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. Then he said, there has never been an acharya in history who has performed miracles like your spiritual master. And then he paused and looked at me. Do you know why? I was so stunned I couldn't say anything. And Babaji Maharaj said, because in history there was never a greater servant than Sri Krishna's holy name than your spiritual master. Because your spiritual master had such absolute understanding of Sri Krishna's holy name and so much absolute faith in Krishna's holy name that he personally carried Krishna's name through the length and breadth of the world. Therefore, he is the greatest acharya who has ever existed. So Prabhupada ki jai. So yes, Srila Prabhupada, he was empowered to teach everyone. He was empowered to bring the holy name to everyone. So in that way, we have the last paragraph. We just read through that. When one thus criticizes the pure devotee, he continues, he commits an offense, Vaishnava aparadha, that is very obstructive and dangerous for those who desire to advance in Krishna consciousness. A person cannot derive any spiritual benefit when he offends the lotus feet of a Vaishnava. Everyone should therefore be very careful not to be jealous of an empowered Vaishnava or a Shuddha Vaishnava. It is also an offense to consider an empowered Vaishnava an object of disciplinary action. It is offensive to try to give him advice or to correct him. One can distinguish between a neophyte Vaishnava and an advanced Vaishnava by their activities. The advanced Vaishnava is always situated as the spiritual master, and the neophyte is always considered his disciple. The spiritual master must not be subjected to the advice of a disciple, nor should a spiritual master be obliged to take instruction from those who are not his disciples. This is the sum and substance of Srila Rupa Goswami's advice in the 6th verse. Srila Rupa Goswami ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Nitai Gopanandi, Hari Hari Bol. So thus ends, dear devotees, our presentation on verse number 6 of Upadeshamrita. And now we have verse number 7 to do. So dear devotees, I have to go down for like 10 minutes at 12:45. For like 10 minutes. I have to meet somebody. It's quite important. There's a function that's happening and I'm supposed to be present there. So is it okay if we take our break at 12:45 instead? Is that okay? Okay, let's do that then. So we move on to our next slide. Krishna, 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 Hare Rama, Krishna, 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 Krishna. Jai, the term instruction ki Jai. So we do now text number 7. Here is the verse. Syat Krishna nama charitadi stapya vidya ito patapta rasanasya charochikanu kintvadarat anudinam kalusaiva jushta svadvikramat bhavatita gadam yulahantri. The holy name, character, pastimes, and activities of Krishna are all transcendently sweet like sugar candy. Although the tongue of one afflicted by the jaundice or avidya, ignorance, cannot taste anything sweet, it is wonderful that simply by carefully chanting these sweet names every day, a natural relish awakens within his tongue, and his disease is gradually destroyed at the root. This verse, devotees, is about the chanting of the holy name, where right now is describing that we are basically afflicted with jaundice right now. But by continuing chanting, because of that, we can't taste the sweetness of chanting Hare Krishna. But by continuing to chant Hare Krishna every day, gradually the taste will come. So this verse, the devotees, is dealing with 4 stages on our map here. Bhajana Kriya, Anartha Nivritti, Nishta, and Ruchi. So previously the verses were dealing with the stages of Shraddha and Sadhu Sangha. So you got faith in the process of Krishna consciousness, you're ready to do whatever it takes to progress in Krishna consciousness, and you hear from the sadhus and you know how to associate with the sadhus properly, and hearing from the sadhus what you're going to do, you're going to practice Krishna consciousness. You will hear how you have to practice bhakti. And the practice of bhakti is what is referred to by the term bhajana kriya. You're performing bhajan, you're performing your practice of Krishna consciousness. Bhajana kriya means learning of the process of devotional service. And as you're practicing Krishna consciousness, dear devotees, you're practicing, you're chanting your rounds, you're reading Prabhupada's books, you're performing your different duties in Krishna consciousness. What happens? Something starts to happen. Our heart starts to get cleansed. That's the stage of Anartha Nivritti. And as soon as there's Bhajan Kriya, immediately Anartha Nivritti Shyat. Anartha means unwanted things, they become vanquished. So the dirty things in our heart, the bad qualities in our heart, the bad tendencies in our heart start to get cleaned up. Starts to get cleaned up. And then as you get purified in your heart, you reach, after some time, you reach the level of nishta. Nishta means to be fixed, you know. One has, at that stage, one's faith is fixed. One has firm faith in the Lord. At that stage, nothing can deviate them from Krishna consciousness. Prabhupada in different places has described nishta as being 50%, 60%, or 75% progress on the path of Krishna consciousness. So we're 75% there. So it's quite a substantial, you know, amount of purification has happened by the time you've reached nishta. So your firm in Krishna is fixed, and nothing can deviate you from practicing Krishna consciousness. And after nishta, you have the stage of ruchi. One has taste. One experiences taste in Krishna consciousness. One loves chanting their rounds. One has great taste in chanting, doing kirtan, great taste in hearing Bhagavatam, great taste in doing their service. So because of that taste, you just cannot do without it. The taste becomes the main thing, you know. So at this stage, taste is what is inspiring you to practice bhakti. It's your driving force to practice bhakti, like that. So this verse is dealing with becoming absorbed in Krishna's holy name, form, qualities, and pastimes. And the way his form, qualities, and pastimes are revealed, all this is revealed by the chanting of Hare Krishna. When one is chanting Hare Krishna properly, attentively, with respect and love and affection, his rupa, guna, and lila will manifest in our heart. We'll be able to remember them in the appear in our heart. You know? So the reason that happens is because on the absolute platform, on the spiritual platform, there's no difference between Krishna's nama, rupa, guna, and lila. Therefore, that's why if you want to advance in Krishna consciousness in your japa, you have to start by hearing your japa. You hear the holy name. Prabhupada says, you don't think, you hear. You hear the holy name. And from hearing the holy name, gradually everything will come into place. The rupa, guna, and lila, the fame, qualities, and pastimes will appear. So yes, chanting Hare Krishna is actually very sweet. It's actually very sweet. You know what happens when you chant Krishna's name? Do you know what happens? Well, Rupa Goswami says what happens. I'll share with you what happens. Rupa Goswami writes this. He says, I do not know how much nectar the two syllables Krishna have produced. When the holy name of Krishna is chanted, it appears to dance within the mouth. We then desire many, many mouths. When that name enters the holes of the ears, we desire many millions of ears. And when the holy name dances in the courtyard of the heart, it conquers the activities of the mind, and therefore all the senses become inert. Wow. Has anybody experienced this yet? No, I haven't. But this is a description of somebody who's chanting Krishna at the level of pure love of God. But that's how amazing the chanting of Krishna's name is. It's very wonderful. But why can we not experience the sweetness of Krishna's names? Has it ever happened to you that you're chanting Hare Krishna, you're doing your rounds and you're like, God, when is this going to stop, you know? Can I just finish quickly? Can I not be done by now? Why can I not experience the sweetness of Krishna's names? Rupa Goswami said it's wonderful and I can't taste anything, it's dry. No taste. Why is that? Rupa Goswami says here, because we are inflicted with the jaundice of avidya, ignorance. We are afflicted by ignorance, avidya. So what is avidya? Let's see what Prabhupada says first in his commentary to this verse. The holy name of Lord Krishna, his quality, pastimes, and so forth, are all of the nature of absolute truth, beauty, and bliss. Naturally, they are very sweet like sugar candy, which appeals to everyone. Nescience, however, is compared to the disease called jaundice, which is caused by bilious secretions. Attacked by jaundice, the tongue of a diseased person cannot palatably relish sugar candy. Rather, a person with jaundice should consider something sweet to taste very bitter. Avidya, ignorance, similarly perverts the ability to relish the transcendentally palatable name, quality, form, and pastimes of Krishna. Despite this disease, if one with great care and attention takes to Krishna consciousness, chanting the holy name and hearing Krishna's transcendental pastimes, his ignorance will be destroyed and his tongue enabled to taste the sweetness of the transcendental nature of Krishna and his paraphernalia. Such a recovery of spiritual health is possible only by the regular cultivation of Krishna consciousness. So avidya is causing us, it perverts our ability to relish the holy name, to relish Krishna. So what is avidya? Prabhupada, in his commentary to Bhagavad Gita, chapter 18, verse 32, he talks about ignorance. He says, that understanding which considers a religion to be religion and religion to be irreligion under the spell of illusion and darkness and strives always in the wrong direction, O Partha, is in the mode of ignorance. One doesn't know what's what. One thinks religion to be irreligion and irreligion to be religion. And Prabhupada describes in the purport, he says, intelligence in the mode of ignorance is always working the opposite of the way it should. It accepts religions which are not actually religions and rejects actual religion. Man in ignorance understands a great soul to be a common man and accept a common man as a great soul. They think truth to be untruth and accept untruth as truth. In all activities, they simply take the wrong path, therefore their intelligence is in the mode of ignorance. So when we are afflicted with ignorance, with avidya, we're just making the wrong choices because we don't know in ignorance. So in the Mahabharata, 5 kinds of ignorance are described. They are, number 1, accepting the body to be the self. So that's our first layer of ignorance, dear devotees. I'm thinking I am this body. Second, one's making material sense gratification my standard of enjoyment. I am meant to just gratify my senses. That's how I enjoy. That's ignorance number 2. Third one, being anxious due to material identification. Once the anxiety that we experience when you're thinking that I'm the body and everything in relation to the body is mine. So that is also our ignorance. Fourth is lamenting. We're lamenting for what I don't have, And fifth, thinking that there's anything beyond the absolute truth. We don't understand that Krishna is the source of everything. That's also an ignorance. And Prabhupada describes the teachings of Lord Chaitanya eradicates these 5 kinds of ignorance. By following Mahaprabhu's process, you eradicate these 5 kinds of ignorance. So this verse is saying, how do you get rid of this ignorance? You follow the process of bhakti, and that is chanting Krishna's name. That is the heart of our practice of bhakti. So avidya, what is avidya? Avidya is a misconception about one's spiritual identity, and it provides the foundation for ahankara or false ego within the heart. So therefore, ignorance is the foundation of our false ego. What is ahankara? What is false ego? It means to think aham mameti. It's all about me and mine. I, me and mine. And that's the thing, if you start thinking, if you get our identity wrong, if we think we're the false ego, then what happens, we get the rest of our choices will automatically be wrong because I don't even know who I am. So if I don't know who I am, how can I do things that are beneficial for me, even for me? So therefore, if we get this equation wrong, then we get the rest of the equation wrong as well. If we get this idea wrong about who I am, then everything else will be wrong as well. So Prabhupada continues, when a man in the material world takes more interest in the materialistic way of life than in Krishna consciousness, he is considered to be in a deceived condition. The normal condition is to remain an eternal servant of the Lord. Jivera Swarupahoya Krishnada Nityadas. This healthy condition is lost when a living entity forgets Krishna due to being attracted by the external features of Krishna's Maya energy. This world of Maya is called Durashraya, which means false or bad shelter. One who puts his faith in Durashraya becomes a candidate for hoping against hope. In the material world, everyone is trying to become happy, and although their material attempts are baffled in every way due to their nations, they cannot understand their mistakes. People try to rectify one mistake by making another mistake. This is the way of the struggle for existence in the material world. If one in this condition is advised to take to Krishna consciousness and be happy, he does not accept such instructions. But this is what happens when you are covered by avidya. You have the jaundice of avidya. You are taking shelter of something which is false or durashraya. It's a bad shelter. This Krishna conscious movement is being spread all over the world just to remedy the gross ignorance. People in general are misled by blind leaders. The leaders of human society, the politicians, philosophers, and scientists are blind because they are not Krishna conscious. According to Bhagavad Gita, because they are bereft of all factual knowledge due to their atheistic way of life, they are actually sinful rascals and are the lowest among men. Whoa, it's heavy. Very heavy statement here. If we're bereft of knowledge, then we are in avidya. So Prabhupada here we can see he is denouncing the bad leadership of this world, which is causing everybody to just remain within this diseased condition of life. Namam diskritino mura prabhantede naradhama maya ya parita jnana asuram bhavam ashrita. Those miscreants who are grossly foolish, lowest among mankind, whose knowledge is stolen by illusion and who partake of the atheistic nature of demons. Demons do not surrender unto me. Such people never surrender to Krishna and they oppose the endeavor of those who wish to take Krishna's shelter. When such atheists become leaders of society, the entire atmosphere is surcharged with nations. In such a condition, people do not become very enthusiastic to receive this Krishna consciousness movement, just as a diseased person suffering from jaundice does not relish the taste of sugar candy. However, one must know that for jaundice, sugar candy is the only specific medicine. Similarly, in the present confused state of humanity, Krishna consciousness, the chanting of the holy name of the Lord, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, is the only remedy for setting the world aright. Although Krishna consciousness may not be very palatable for a diseased person, Srila Rupa Goswami nonetheless advises that if one wants to be cured of the material disease, he must take it with great care and attention. One begins his treatment by chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, because by chanting the holy name of the Lord, a person in the material condition will be relieved from all misconceptions. So dear devotees, Prabhupada is doing something really amazing here. Rupa Goswami wrote this verse in Ter Kadamba in Vrajamandala on his own underneath one of those trees there. It's called Pariksha trees. And he wrote this verse describing the jaundice of avidya and the power of the holy name to eradicate it. Many, many years later, Prabhupada comes and says the entire world is suffering because of this. And this verse is the remedy for the entire world, for the sufferings that they're going through. How amazing it is. Rupa Goswami was like on his own there, on his own writing that book. In 500 years, well maybe not 500 years, but many, many years later. Many, many years later, Prabhupada is the one who says, look, Rupa Goswami is giving you the solution in this verse. Is by taking the medicine, by taking the right treatment, and that treatment is the chanting of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. We chant Hare Krishna, a person in the material condition will be relieved from all misconceptions. Avidya, a misconception about one's spiritual identity, provides the foundation for ahankara or false ego within the heart. So the only cure for jaundice of avidya is the holy name. Is the holy name of Krishna. Atashi Krishna namare na bhavid grayam indriye sevan mukhehi jivado swayam eva spurati ada. So this is verse from Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu that describes Krishna's name, form, qualities and pastimes. You cannot appreciate it through your material senses, my eyes, my ears, my tongue. You can't appreciate Krishna as he is, name, form, qualities, pastimes, through these material senses. But how do you get there? How do you get to the point where you're able to relish Krishna? Sevan mukhe hi jivado. You have to turn towards Krishna in seva, sevan mukhe hi jivado, and you do what? You engage your tongue. You engage your senses, first starting with the tongue, jiva, starting with the tongue. Swayam eva spurati yada, and then you will get spurati of the Lord. You will get darshan of the Lord. You will be able to relish Krishna. So it specifically mentions you have to start by engaging the tongue. And how to engage the tongue is first by chanting the holy name and by taking prasadam. Just by taking prasadam. Like that. So Prabhupada mentions in the Srimad Bhagavatam, he says, simply by chanting the holy name of Lord Vishnu, such sinful persons may attract the attention of the Supreme Lord, who therefore considers, because this man has chanted my holy name, my duty is to give him protection. So you see the holy name, chanting Hare Krishna, is actually the only cure, because it's a wonderful process that puts you directly in touch with Krishna. Because when you chant his name, at least once, even offenselessly, or even once, but offensive, or if even one chants the holy name even once, but offenselessly, Krishna takes it so seriously. He says, this person has chanted my name and therefore it is my duty to protect him. So just imagine if you are always chanting Krishna's name without offenses. How indebted does Krishna feel and how responsible does Krishna feel towards you? It is my duty to give him protection. So the holy name and Krishna are non-different. Therefore, when the devotee chants the holy name, then Krishna and his internal potency are on the tongue of the devotee. On the tongue of the devotee. So this verse here is giving us two things. This verse is describing two things in relation to the chanting of the holy name. Let's have a look. There's two words used in the Sanskrit here. Adarat, carefully, and anudinam, every day or 24 hours daily. So that's two things we should remember when chanting Hare Krishna. Prabhupada continues, the real disease is in the heart. If the mind is cleansed, however, if consciousness is cleansed, a person cannot be harmed by the material disease. To cleanse the mind and heart from all misconceptions, one should take to the chanting of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. This is both easy and beneficial. By chanting the holy name of the Lord, one is immediately freed from the blazing fire of material existence. One is immediately freed from the blazing fire of material existence. This is both easy and beneficial. By chanting the holy name of the Lord, one is immediately freed from the blazing fire of material existence. We should have faith in this statement, dear devotees. By doing these two things carefully and every day or constantly chanting Hare Krishna, one is going to become freed from the blazing fire of material existence. So Prabhupada mentions in the previous purport, it says that we must take to the chanting of Hare Krishna with great care and attention. What does it mean to chant Hare Krishna with great care and attention? We have to carefully chant the Mahamantra. What does it mean? How do we do that? How do we carefully chant the holy name, dear devotees?
We're chanting.
Sorry, Mataji?
Hearing when we're chanting.
Hearing, yes. Hearing when we're chanting attentively. Oh, sorry, my thing is in the way. Yeah. Chanting attentively. Anything else? Yeah. Yeah, well, if we understand that Krishna is a person and his holy name is not different from him, then we'll be attentive. Because I'm dealing with a person. Prabhupada says we should chant Hare Krishna like a child is crying for his mother. And what does that mean? It doesn't mean, you know, I can see there's probably a few mothers here. So when your child was a baby, when they would, were there times when they would cry, but it was a fake cry? And but then there were times when they would really, really cry, you go, oh no, I have to go to them. A mother knows, right, when it's a real cry, when it's not a real cry. So similarly with the Lord, we have to really cry. I mean, it doesn't mean during japa time we all start becoming crybabies. That's not what we're saying. That's not what we're advocating. But we're saying the mood in which we chant. Are we feelingly calling out to Krishna? Are we chanting with feeling? Prabhupada in Bhagavatam says, actually the Lord's holy name has such powerful potency, but there is a quality to such utterances also. It depends on the quality of feeling. What's the quality of our feeling? A helpless man can feelingly utter the holy name of the Lord, whereas a man who utters the same holy name in great material satisfaction cannot be so sincere. He says a helpless man can feelingly utter the name. And that when we have a feeling of helplessness. But a person who's materially satisfied, they've got everything going on really well for them, they can't be so sincere. It's harder to be sincere. So the devotees, when life throws these things at you, these tests, these horrible situations, these are chances, these are actually golden opportunities for us to be able to chant with feeling. Really call out to Krishna, Krishna, help! Maybe not like that, or really call out, Krishna, help! Really call out for Krishna's help, with feeling, when Krishna lifted Govardhan, when Indra was attacking Vrindavan, the Vrajavasis immediately went, Krishna, 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 come and help us. So we should have the same feeling when we chant Krishna's name. Krishna, Krishna, my friend Krishna, please help me. Chant with feeling and attentively. What are other ways of understanding chanting with great care and attention? There's one important one nobody has mentioned yet. We recite it every morning during just before japa time.
Oh, taking into account the 10 offences, Prabhu.
Yes, the 10 offences, yes. We have to be careful about the 10 offences. And inattentiveness is considered to be the foremost of all of them, actually. All of the other offences come from that one, being inattentive. Yes? We avoid the 10 offences. We can't get into it now because that would be another seminar. But there are many seminars about it, yes. What we should also do, we should value our japa time. The time we chant our japa is not time that we fit in between our things. Our japa time is the most important part of our day because our entire spiritual growth depends on it. Yeah, so telling the holy name is the way to progress in Krishna consciousness. And as Prabhupada says, and to save the whole world.
Hare Krishna, can I ask a question? Sorry.
Yes, ma'am.
But how do we get the mercy actually to chant with attention? Because if the mind goes, sometimes you don't even notice, and then you need to bring it back, and so how this mercy comes that that the mind just one day finally it doesn't go, it's just the name is there.
You know what it is, the nature of the mind. The mind is always accepting and rejecting. You've heard of this? The mind accepts and rejects. That's the only two things the mind does. Accepts and rejects, and it's accepting and rejecting based on what it likes and what it doesn't like. So the mind has been in touch with different sense objects. So he's made a decision like, okay, I like this, I like that. So because to the mind is not used to the sweetness of the holy name yet. So therefore, it doesn't want to go there. Therefore, it just goes to other things that it likes to focus on, like other people's faults, or the movie I used to watch 10 years ago, or like da 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 da. So the mind keeps going to these different things. It's not focused. So really, that's why Rupa Goswami says, Adarad and Anudinam. Where is it? Wait. Yes, Adarad and Anudinam. We should do it carefully and every day. That's why Prabhupada has, and our child has given us this sadhana to do it every day, because your mind is not used to it, and you have to apply your mind to it. So unless you allow your mind to become in contact with it, it won't get used to it. You know? So that's why you have to constantly apply ourselves. And again, like I was saying in the beginning of the class, we shouldn't take these things like a stick and hit our heads. Oh, I'm inattentive. Oh, I'm inattentive. That tends to do something reverse. It has the opposite effect on our mind. We become more averse to it. What we should do, we just should become convinced that I should continuously practice this. I shouldn't give up. So that's why the mind goes and you bring it again. The mind goes and you bring it again. And you know, have you ever read this book called Japa by Brijan Prabhu? I can't hear you. Anyway, that's fine. If you haven't, have you, Mataji, read that book?
No, I didn't. Sorry.
Oh, you should. That book is amazing. Because I used to, I still struggle with my mind during Japa, but I was at a point where I was really, really struggling to focus. And that book called Japa is really nice because it gets into how the mind works. So the mind is like a monkey. It's like a restless monkey. If you've been to Vrindavan, you've also seen restless monkeys. You know, the mind is exactly like that, jumping from here, that way, this way, that way, and it's never happy. Woof, all over the place. The mind is like that. So what you have to do, you have to trick the mind. Just sadhana, you see, it's like abhyas. You have to apply yourself and exercise. So you have to trick your mind to constantly go back. So what you do, if you tell your mind, I have to focus on this mantra for 2 hours, the mind will freak out. What you do, you tell your mind, oh, just one more mantra. Okay, just one more mantra. So every time before each mantra, you say, okay, one more mantra you focus on. Okay, just do another one. And you see the mind doesn't become bewildered. You can try it. I tried it, it worked. Okay, just one more. That's fine, just one more. And you keep doing that for each mantra until it becomes 1 round, until it becomes 2 rounds, it becomes more like that. So there's different tools you can use to kind of like trick the mind, because it's like you just have to kind of know how to deal with your mind. Yeah. It's like dealing with a child almost. Okay, don't worry, just do another round, you know. I don't know if you've ever dealt with kids, but I used to. My brothers are quite a lot younger than me. So when I was 9 years old, that's when they were born. So as they were growing up, when I was 5, I was already like 15 or something. So I used to deal with them when they were like proper kids and they're not listening. And you have to be like, oh, don't worry, but just do it. Okay, I'll do it. So the mind is very much like that. The mind's very much like that. So you have to trick the mind. Oh, my dear mind, one more round is okay. Don't worry. One more round's fine. So there's lots of tips like that in this book that you can apply to see how to. But then you were saying like when the mercy comes, that I can always focus. But the mind will not go anywhere when you get taste for chanting. The taste for chanting. The taste will come first of all by you constantly doing it, because first you're showing Krishna that I am serious about chanting my rounds. You're not giving up. And secondly, taste for chanting comes by associating with devotees who have taste for chanting. So you have to associate with the devotees who have taste. Hear them chant the holy name. Be with them when they chant japa. It's quite amazing. You know, be with them when they chant japa. It's pretty amazing. Have you ever seen Radhanath Swami chant japa? There was a video I saw of His Holiness Radhanath Swami do japa in Chopati. And when he chants japa, he closes his eyes. I don't know if he still does it, but in that video, he was closing his eyes and really chanting with feeling like this, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. And you look at that temple room, everybody in that temple room is chanting the same way. Absorbing the chanting of Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Actually, I know where I saw that. It's in this movie called The Simple Temple. I think it's called The Simple Temple. It was about Chopati Temple many years ago. And so when you're around devotees who chant japa really well, it's like, whoa. So we should get the association. And we were talking about what association means, right, in the previous verse. It's not just means I hang around them. I mean, you get something by hanging around them. But it means you have some exchange with them. You inquire from them, you serve them, you know. You serve them and you give them gifts or something like that. You know, 6 loving exchanges should be done. So yes, so those two things, keep going, keep doing it, get the tips, apply yourself, try really hard, but at the same time, you have to get the mercy from the advanced souls. Yeah, so that's the chanting of Hare Krishna. Yeah, it's quite amazing. Is that okay, Harini Mataji? Okay, I'm glad. So, let me just read this this paragraph, and then we'll have a single break. So there are 3 stages in chanting the holy name of the Lord. The offensive stage, the stage of lessening offenses, and the pure stage. So Prabhupada gives the translation of these 3 stages up to the Sanskrit here as well. Offensive stage is Nama Aparad. Stage of lessening offenses is Nama Bas. And Shuddhanam is the pure stage of chanting. When a devotee takes to the chanting of the Hare Krishna mantra, he generally commits many offenses. There are 10 basic offenses, and if the devotee avoids these, he can glimpse the next stage, which is situated between offensive chanting and pure chanting. When one attains the pure stage, he is immediately liberated. This is called Bhava Maha Davagni Nirvapana. As soon as one is liberated from the blazing fire of material existence, he can relish the taste of transcendental life. Of transcendental life. Yes. So we will elaborate a little bit on these 3 stages a little bit more, but it's almost 1:45, so we will take our break. It's 12:45. So we take our break and we reconvene at 12:55. Is that okay? Okay, devotees, Hare Krishna. See you in 10 minutes. Hare Krishna, dear devotees, I am back. Apologies for this delay. Hope everybody is here. Hare Krishna. Lisa Mataji, I think it's only you. Anyway, we continue because it's being recorded, right? I think it's still being recorded.
Yes, it is, Prabhu.
Okay, let's continue. So yes, there are the 3 stages in chanting of the holy name. The offensive stage, Namaparad. The stage of lessening offenses, Namabhas. And the pure stage, Shuddhanam. So here's a few things about this stage, these 3 stages. So Haridas Thakur, he compares the process of chanting Hare Krishna to the rising of the sun. And Prabhupada quotes that in Srimad Bhagavatam. He says basically before the sunrise even takes place, no, the sun hasn't risen yet, but there's light coming, the light of dawn is coming through. And just the light of dawn, when it starts to appear, it destroys the fear of the dangers of the night, such as disturbances by thieves, ghosts, and rakshasas. And when the sunshine actually appears, one engages in one's duties. So in a similar way, even before one's chanting has become completely pure, one is freed from all sinful reactions. And when he chants purely, he becomes a lover of Krishna. So this is interesting. This is interesting that even though one's chanting has not become pure yet, but one's chanting is free from offenses, that means we're talking about the stage of lessening offenses, namabhas. So one is free from all sinful reactions, and one's chanting becomes, and when one chants purely, one becomes a lover of Krishna. Yes, Lisa Mataji.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Is that only if you have a spiritual master though? If you're still aspiring, or you have no spiritual
That
master?
would happen when the spiritual master gives the holy name. So
Okay.
So that would mean that doesn't necessarily mean formal initiation, but it means the principle of initiation, that one is already receiving instructions from the spiritual master and they've given you the holy name. So the giving of the holy name doesn't have to necessarily be I'm giving you your beads and I've chanted on your beads. It actually starts when that person has instructed you, you should chant the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra.
Okay, thank you, Prabhu.
Like that. So therefore, yeah, so this stage of Namabhas is actually pretty powerful. Just by being on this stage, one is freed from all sinful reactions. So here's something nice about Namabhas, is that a devotee never accepts mukti. We were talking about liberation earlier. Purna Kishore Prabhu was talking about how we practice Krishna consciousness to get out, but I was pointing out, no, a devotee doesn't even want that. So a devotee never accepts mukti, even if Krishna offers it. Mukti, freedom from all sinful reactions, is obtained even by Namabhas, the second stage, or a glimpse of the light of the holy name before its full light is perfectly visible. So this is a very important stage for us to come to, Namabhas stage, at least come to Namabhas stage. Yeah. And here's another something very nice as well about this stage of Namabhas. In different places, Namabhas is described as the clearing stage. It means the same thing. Stage of lessening offenses, or the clearing stage. So Haridas Thakur says, by Namabhas, one becomes purified of the mud of materialism. All fears flee from Namabhas. A person who chants Namabhas is safe from all calamities. Yakshas, Rakshasas, Pretas, evil planets, and Anarthas, all of them flee from Namabhas. By Namabhas, the souls fallen into hell are delivered. From Namabhas, all past karma flees. By Namabhas, all sins are destroyed. By Namabhas, mukti is attained. So yes, so you can see, if we stay stuck on Namaparad stage, offensive stage, we're not getting all the wonderful. Sounds a bit fruity to say we're not getting all the wonderful benefits of chanting, but we're not chanting. We're not getting the side effects definitely of chanting if we don't at least try to get out of the Namaparad stage and come to Namabhas. Yes. So here's a nice quote from Prabhupada about chanting. Let's hear what he has to say.
Preetipurvak, with love, not as hackney. Here is a beauty, chanting of Hare Krishna. I like Hare Krishna. Not like that. With preeti, with love, chant every name, Hare Krishna. And here is Krishna, here is Radha. That kind of chant, quality. Not Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Radha. Not like that. Preeti. Desam satadritanam bhajatam preeti. That preeti is required. That is the essential quality. Patram pushpam phalam.
Vishnu Prabhupada ki jai. So Prabhupada is saying we should chant with a feeling of love, you know. Not Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Radha. No, chanting with some preeti, he said, some feeling of love, like that. Let's continue to see what Prabhupada says. So the conclusion is that in order to get free from material disease, one must take to the chanting of the Hare Krishna mantra. The Krishna consciousness movement is especially meant for creating an atmosphere in which people can take to the chanting of the Hare Krishna mantra. One must begin with faith, and when this faith is increased by chanting, a person can become a member of the society. We are sending Sankirtan parties all over the world, and they are experiencing that even in the remotest part of the world, where there is no knowledge of Krishna, the Hare Krishna Mahamantra attracts thousands of men to our camp. In some areas, people begin to imitate the devotees by shaving their heads and chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra only a few days after hearing the mantra. This may be imitative, but imitation of a good thing is desired. Some imitators gradually become interested in being initiated by the spiritual master and offer themselves for initiation. If one is sincere, he is initiated, and this stage is called bhajana kriya. One then actually engages in the service of the Lord by regularly chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra 16 rounds daily and refraining from illicit sex, intoxicants, meat eating and gambling. By bhajana kriya, one attains freedom from the contamination of materialistic life. He no longer goes to a restaurant or hotel to taste so-called palatable dishes made with meat and onions, nor does he care to smoke or drink tea or coffee. He not only refrains from illicit sex but avoids sex life entirely, nor is he interested in wasting his time in speculating or gambling. In this way, it is to be understood that one is becoming cleansed of unwanted things, anartha nivritti. The word anartha refers to unwanted things. Anarthas are vanquished when one becomes attached to the Krishna consciousness movement. When a person is relieved from unwanted things, he becomes fixed in executing his Krishna activities. Indeed, he becomes attached to such activities and experiences ecstasy in executing devotional service. So these devotees, you see here, Prabhupada, he's kind of making a jump here. Kind of like describing how he's talking about anartha nivritti. If you look at our chart here, anartha nivritti is fourth in line in this succession of stages. So it's like it's fourth. Anartha nivritti is here. So he's describing basically all the other stages are included in his sentence here, and he goes all the way to bhava. So he says, indeed, he becomes attached to such activities and experiences ecstasy in executing devotional service. This is called bhava. So he's come all the way here. In this statement, he's including nishtha, ruchi, ashakti, and bhava. This is called bhava, the preliminary awakening of dormant love of Godhead. So in just these 3 lines, there's so much contained here. Thus, the conditioned soul becomes free from material existence and loses interest in the bodily conception of life, including material opulence, material knowledge, and material attraction of all variety. At such a time, one can understand who the Supreme Personality of Godhead is and what his Maya is. So Prabhupada here, as you can see, he introduces the stage of Maya in this, or stage of Bhava in this purport. This is called Bhava, the preliminary awakening of dormant loving God. So Prabhupada in this paragraph here, he gives a very fundamental, basic explanation of Bhava, of what it means to be in a stage of Bhava, that one knows the difference between Maya and Krishna, meaning one will definitely not be bewildered by Maya at this point. And what is Maya? Maya means to see everything in this world to be separate from Krishna. To be separate from Krishna. Krishna tells Lord Brahma in Bhagavatam, he says, whatever appears to be of any value, if it is without relation to me, has no reality. Know it as my illusory energy, that reflection which appears to be in darkness. So actually everything is connected to Krishna, but Maya means I'm not seeing things in relation to Krishna. I think it's in relation to me, everything's revolving around me. But no, Maya, that's Maya. Maya, to be out of Maya means to see everything in relationship with Krishna. So that's Bhava. Bhava is basically the Uttama devotee, the topmost devotee. We began this purport. Oh no, not this purport. But we began the previous purport with a description of somebody, of the topmost devotee. That's referring to somebody at Bhava. And Bhava, basically at Bhava, the Uttama platform, the Uttama Adhikari, they see Krishna everywhere and see everything in relation to Krishna. No. A devotee at this stage can fully understand the Lord's name, form, quality, and paraphernalia and entourage, because what happens at Bhava, the curtain of Maya has opened up and is revealing Krishna. And there's this verse from Bhagavatam, Maya Javanika Chanam. This curtain of Maya prevents us from seeing Krishna for who he really is. But when you've reached that stage, first of all, one is liberated. Sagunan samatityetan. One is liberated, and one is like, at this stage, one is experiencing also ecstatic emotions in Krishna's service. One also has intense attachment for the holy name at this stage. So yes, the holy name takes one for anartha nivritti and all the other stages all the way to Bhava. So Prabhupada continues to explain, although Maya may be present, it cannot disturb a devotee once he attains the Bhava stage. This is because the devotee can see the real position of Maya. Maya means forgetfulness of Krishna, and forgetfulness of Krishna and Krishna consciousness stand side by side like light and shadow. If one remains in shadow, he cannot enjoy the facilities offered by light. And if one remains in light, he cannot be disturbed by the darkness of shadow. By taking to Krishna consciousness, one gradually becomes liberated and remains in light. Indeed, he does not even touch the darkness. As confirmed in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya 22:31, Krishna Surya Sama Maya Haya Andhakar Yaha Krishna Taha Nahi Maya Ra Adhikar. Krishna is compared to sunshine and Maya is compared to darkness. Wherever there is sunshine, there cannot be darkness. As soon as one takes to Krishna consciousness, the darkness of illusion, the influence of the external energy will immediately vanish. Prabhupada ki jai. So yes, wherever there's Krishna, there cannot be Maya. So the holy name, dear devotees, takes us all the way up into this very exalted stage that Prabhupada mentions here. And here's a beautiful quote from Srila Bhakti Siddhanta, from Srila Bhakti Vinod Thakur, that I would like to share with all of you. It describes what the holy name gives us. The holy name is our sadhana, is our practice from the beginning of spiritual life, when we're in the middle of spiritual life, and even at the end of spiritual life, although there's no end to spiritual life. The holy name will continue to be there forever, eternally. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur describes that the holy name of Krishna is the bud of the flower of rasa. So what is rasa? Rasa is the taste we experience in our relationship with Krishna. The holy name of Krishna is the bud of the flower of rasa, which is the essence of pure transcendence. So whatever is transcendental, rasa is the essence of it, and the holy name is the bud of the flower of rasa. So by the grace of Krishna, rasa is propagated in the material world in the form of his holy names. So whatever we're doing in this world, all we're doing, actually Prabhupada described in Bhagavatam, we're all seeking a certain taste, a certain rasa. But spiritual rasa, transcendental rasa, is being propagated in the material world in the form of his holy names. With the first opening of the bud of the holy name comes the realization of the enchanting form of Krishna in Goloka Vrindavan. So as you're practicing chanting Hare Krishna and you're hearing the holy name, the flower of the holy name starts to open up. And the first opening of the bud comes the realization of Krishna's form. And as you continue chanting Hare Krishna properly, nicely, one, you get revelation of the Lord's 64 transcendental qualities, which are like the irresistible fragrance from the partially blossomed flower. And when this flower comes into full bloom, it manifests the eternal and confidential pastimes of Krishna. So that's the holy name that's giving realization of everything spiritual, everything about Krishna. So in that way, Bhaktivinoda Thakur describes that the holy name is giving us everything. It's giving us Krishna, his name, quality, name, form, qualities, and pastimes. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur ki jai. So here we've ended our presentation on the 7th verse of Sri Upadeshamrita, which is dealing with the holy name, which is our lifeline in Kali Yuga, and which we should never let go of. Hare Krishna. So we've ended now, 20 past 1. Are there any thoughts, questions, realizations that you would like to share? Please feel free to ask or share. I think everyone seems to be good. I think it's been a long day, so everyone's a bit tired. So we'll conclude here. If you have any questions that come up afterwards, we can address them maybe in next week's class at the beginning. And yes, we'll continue. Then next week we'll continue on our journey of Sri Upadeshamrita. We will be doing verses 8 and 9 next week. And as we're going, we're getting closer and closer to the spiritual world. Jai. Shri Rupa Goswami ki jai, Shri Prabhupada ki jai, Anantakoti Vaishnava ki jai. Jai Go Premanandi, Hari Hari Go.
Thank you so much, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Thank you to all of you for tolerating.
Thank you so much, Prabhu.
Thank you,
Hare
Prabhu.
Krishna. Thank you, Prabhu.
Krishna, thank you.
Thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.